UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good Monday morning to you. 3 minutes past 10 o'clock is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk, the home of common sense. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, it's great to have you company on yet another quiet Monday news day. I mean, they just keep on coming, don't they? They just keep on coming. There is so much to talk about, and with you live until 1 o'clock, you do not want to miss a single moment of this show, I promise you. And if you do, shame on you. Go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, and hit subscribe, and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, of course, we are going to discuss Morgan McSweeney's resignation over the Peter Mandelson scandal. But will it be enough to save Keir Starmer's premiership? I think we all know the answer to that is no. What I want to hear from you today is, can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? And what happens next? Does he get? I mean, I don't think anyone thinks he's actually going to go today. I think it could be in the next couple of days. It could be Friday. Could wait until the Gorton by-election. That's in just 2 weeks' time. And the disaster that many predict will be that result. We could wait to the local elections. Is it in the interest of those who want to oust him? You've got to remember the process for getting him out, stalking horse and all that probably. That may mean that he's, I don't know, staggers on for a bit longer. I want to hear your thoughts. What do you reckon? Because I tell you what, Morgan McSweeney's gone, Mr. Arch, brilliant strategist, election guru, who couldn't boil an egg, if you ask me, judging by how useless he was. He apparently has gone, we lost the strategy. I'm of the view that most of us who've never done that job are rather better at strategising these things. So I want to hear what you have to say. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate, and text cost one standard network rate message. We're also obviously going to be talking about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, as he now is, while he was the UK trade envoy, leaking reports to Jeffrey Epstein. Could he also now face a criminal probe into that, as well as, of course, criminal probes into his relation, shall we say, with some of the young women that were brought over by Jeffrey Epstein. The plot is thickening. I would say the noose is tightening. And who knows who else could be basically in the firing line. I want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. Delighted to stay in the firing line today. From me is Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, joining us this Monday morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Were you surprised when Morgan McSweeney, a man who, by the way, no one with a normal life has heard of? I mean, look, come on. Everyone goes, oh, yeah, Morgan. Oh, give me a break. This,
You assumed he was a Victorian criminal if you've heard of him at all.
Yes.
That's something slightly dastardly. It's
I would have thought detective, running his own detective agency.
Maybe Scottish
private eye,
detective
Morgan McSweeney
in Glasgow,
yes.
Doesn't play by the rules, not even his own, and that's what's got him in trouble.
I have to say, I think you'll find he's the mastermind strategist, election guru behind the extraordinary victory of Keir Starmer in 2024.
It's not been a great week for political geniuses, has it?
No.
These brilliant strategists, they just keep on messing up.
It's weird,
really badly.
isn't it?
It's almost as
Protégé of Peter Mandelson.
It's almost as if you shouldn't, brief that to the press that's what people call you. It's not a great idea.
But were you surprised that he went?
Was I surprised at the timing on a Sunday? Yes and no, because obviously they're trying to do that when it's a quiet day, but at the same time, why do it particularly on that day?
Well, it was
Because
after Pat McFadden, a minister close to not just the basically the Prime Minister's most trusted ally in government, probably, certainly not David Lammy. I advise you not to hire Mr. Mandelson, Lord Mandelson.
Having gone
Lammy.
on air saying what a great appointment.
Yeah, exactly. But also very close to Morgan McSweeney, and he basically said, he argued there wouldn't be any resignations, and then a few hours later there were.
It was weird timing because of the specific day and the time of day that it came out.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand you're thinking, oh, okay, quiet day, so not everybody's going to be expecting it. But on the other hand, it is right in time for all the headlines on Monday morning. So there's no escaping it. So on the one hand, you can kind of see why a half-wit might think it was a good idea to do it on that day. On the other hand, I think it was literally he probably just reached breaking point. The Prime Minister was putting pressure on him to resign. I think that's fairly clear. And he just decided, okay,
he's assuming he doesn't want to lose him, because let's face it, the key thing about Keir Starmer is he's a completely empty he sued. And Morgan McSweeney, via using Prince Mandelson, he is the protege of Mandelson, very close. He was the one pushing for him to be MI6. At the end of the day, though, the Prime Minister admitted at PMQs he did know the information, which he should have known. It was in the public domain. You didn't need to be MI6 you didn't need to be 007 to be able to get information about whether Mandelson was or was not still friends with Jeffrey Epstein and staying in his home after he had been convicted of basically soliciting a 14-year-old for sex. I mean, end of. But and as pointed out by a lot of people, again, the Prime Minister has a teenage daughter, teenage girl around the same age at the time. It's just extraordinary. But it does sound like, it was sort of like, right, OK, you go and we'll see if we can survive. Lots of pressure now on Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor. Again, another Mandelson, mate, big two. Basically, it's the Blair government put back together. He's now under fire. You're the National Security Advisor. You would have had the advice to know that it was a national security risk to have a man who was totally compromised, not just from his Russian links, Deripaska, his Chinese links, the money he'd made from the Chinese in his business. Again, they know what they're doing. These these countries, these organisations. The close links with Epstein. Jonathan Powell, if you cared about our national security, would have said, you appoint this guy, I'm resigning. It was a bunch of mates together. Lots of pressure on Mandelson to pay back that £55,000 golden goodbye or give it to charity from when he was ambassador, sacked last September. Again, if you're sacked, what the hell are you getting a golden goodbye? I mean, that's the outrageous thing as well. But here's the thing. Can Keir Starmer survive this? Because it seems to me that in no way does Morgan McSweeney going take the heat off the Prime Minister, because at the end of the day, he had the information. If he didn't have the right information, that's his fault too, because he didn't ask the right questions. He was being a lawyer about it, plausible deniability. Well, it ain't plausible, mate. He made the decision. He's defended that decision for a long time. The criticism was out there. I mean, we were talking about it on air. What a terrible appointment it was. Maybe you should listen to talk more often.
On the subject of McSweeney's resignation, I mean, this is the thing that I don't get. If you're a principled Prime Minister, which, Starmer has tried to portray himself, you resign at the top of the scandal. You go, look, the buck stops with me. I'm the guy. I'm going. You don't drag it out. But if you are also then this cutthroat Machiavellian political operator, you don't let your chief of staff, you don't let your top guy resign. You say, no, we're going to be in the bunker until they drag us out screaming. You don't fall on your sword because it might buy you a few days. That's what I've never understood about. And it was the same with Boris Johnson when Dominic Cummings and everybody left. You're just thinking, the second this guy goes, it starts the clock on you. You are going to go. Whether or not you are aware that you're done is beside the point. But you are done. Again, whether or not the fact has actually happened yet, it's still a fait accompli. And that's where we are now. Days, weeks, months, doesn't matter. There's nothing for him to look forward to.
No.
They're probably going to lose the upcoming by-election, the local elections. Where is the respite? There's the spring statement that apparently the Chancellor won't be giving.
No, there'll be a reset in the summer. That'll be reset number 4012.
And we all know what happens when there's a reset. Something bad happens with a front bench minister.
But again, the key thing is, either this was the right decision or it was the wrong decision. If it was the right decision, you say no one should go. If it was the wrong decision, he's the one who made it. But also, it was still the wrong decision last Wednesday.
Exactly.
It was still the wrong decision when the Epstein files came out a weekend ago. And apparently it took McSweeney all this time to do this and then honourably resign. Let's have a little watch and listen, because I think this is fascinating. In 2020, Keir Starmer, when he was still Mr. I'm going to be this amazing, grown up in the room. This is just, in the year that he was elected as Labour leader. Here is the Prime Minister talking about how, when he was head of the Crown Prosecution Service as the Director of Public Prosecutions, how he dealt with his staff. Have a watch and a listen to this.
Hear me out. I had 8,000 staff for 5 years as the Director of Public Prosecutions. And I acted, I hope, in the right way with them, which is when they had victories, I celebrated on their behalf. I picked up awards on their behalves. And when they made mistakes, I carried the can. I never turn on my staff, and you should never turn on your staff.
You should never turn on your staff. I mean, come on, this is him just running for the Labour leadership. I mean, quite clearly turning on his staff.
It's unbelievable. But again, as I said, it should be ultimately him that's going, because if it is the director of communications or chief of staff or whoever it is that's given him advice, and he's taken the advice and it's led to this. He is the man that took the decision. You can't just sit there and go, as you say, turning on your staff. But even if you weren't turning on your staff, even if you sat there saying, well, he made a mistake, but we're going to carry on, you have to take the rap yourself. You're the Prime Minister. And as you said, you don't even need access to the security services, which, by the way, as Prime Minister, you do have.
Could have just
you just
read
need
the papers.
2 thumbs and a pair of eyes.
Do you know the
the
most shocking thing that's emerged this weekend? And this absolutely blew my mind. If you've not read this, sit down. Don't be drinking tea. You'll spit it everywhere. When they did the shortlist for who should be the ambassador to the United States, the top diplomatic job of our country. I mean, this is a dream job for anyone. The shortlist was 3 people, OK? It was Lord Mandelson, with all his skeletons and all his problems. It was George Osborne, so former Tory Chancellor, to be appointed. And the third, I kid you not, Bear Grylls. Because apparently, head of the Scout Association and had a telly programme that was well known in the States. Bear Grylls was genuinely considered to be one of the top 3 candidates for that job. And who would have guessed that, when it comes down to it, it would have been better to have a bloke who drinks his own urine as our ambassador to Washington than the man they actually appointed. You couldn't make this stuff up.
I absolutely love it. As well, the Bear Grylls was put on a list with literally the guy whose nickname is the Prince of Darkness and then Satan's little helper underneath. And they thought those two were the guy. I mean, listen, it doesn't say... What that tells you is that they don't think much of Donald Trump, that they were thinking, right, well, we need actual demons. Or the guy who survives in a war zone in the wilderness in Washington. It's not great, is it? But you're right. Your Bear Grylls is going to be sat there at home today going, well, I've come out of this pretty well. You're not laughing at me now, are you?
I don't think Bear Grylls sits at home. I think he's hanging from
sitting
a
in a
tree.
tree.
I don't know what he's doing. Look, so the Prime Minister today is going to... I told you, the Prime Minister is going to be making a statement today. It's not a lectern moment. He's going to be at the Parliamentary Labour Party, so a bunch of Labour MPs. I mean, 404 of them are going to be crowded into one of the committee rooms, and he's going to address them tonight. And again, when Tony Blair and people like that, when he had to deal with this sort of stuff, he was really good at it. Keir Starmer is not really good at it. There's a lot of grumblings from not just backbenchers, but also from his own cabinet. Look, David Lammy, he's Deputy Prime Minister, and only because basically we had to get rid of him as Foreign Secretary because he's useless, and we're going to have to appoint him as well. We'll give him the Deputy Prime Minister job to make him not go squealing. He's in the papers this weekend saying, I advise the Prime Minister not to appoint. All these other people, I advise the Prime Minister not to appoint. So he's lost most of his cabinet already. They are just sitting there waiting. Very interesting today, they put out junior minister, former Home Secretary many years ago, Jackie Smith, but a junior minister went out to defend him. And she did her best, to be fair. She's a very, she's a competent minister. But Angela Rayner, former deputy, ousted, desperately trying to get the HMRC investigation over and done on her stamp duty. We've got Wes Streeting, again, another protégé, Peter Mandelson. That's not good for him. Andy Burnham, not yet an MP, trying to get a seat. And Ed Miliband, all basically vying for the top job.
Yeah.
What a choice, people. Frying pan, fire. I
was going to say, it's a bit like, the WWE, the wrestling, when somebody hits somebody from behind with the steel chair. That's what David Lammy did. But it's somehow it's going to be that he hits him with the chair and then ends up hitting himself in the face. That's going to be the Labour leadership contest when it happens. Because, as you say, there are just no good options. And it's going to be everybody trying not to make a gaffe, try not to say too much, try not to spook the bum markets or anything like that. And everybody sat there going, wow, how exciting.
Andy Burnham doesn't care about bond markets. It's absolutely... We could just ignore those, apparently. We shall see. But, I mean, the only thing probably keeping the Prime Minister in today, in office, is the fact they haven't agreed on a successor.
Yeah. Really, a really competent group of people. They haven't seen any of this coming down the line, that all of us have been saying, this doesn't look good.
It's an absolute joke.
The thing with the Epstein files is, Trump was talking about this on the campaign trail. Everybody knew this was coming down the line. And for them to sit there and go, Mandelson,
won't happen.
No skeletons in his closet. Let's put him in place.
Well, and again, another man with a lot of skeletons in his closet, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, artist formerly known as Prince. There's allegations all weekend about him and Russian models, inverted commas, coming. What were they doing? Doing a catwalk, were they? Being invited with Jeffrey Epstein to Buckingham Palace. Some of these rather just creepy emails, and the way that Epstein and Andrew discussing these young women is just repulsive. we've got the police looking into, after Virginia Giuffre's claims, but police looking into claims that the second a woman as well being trafficked to him. The whole thing's horribly seedy. Whether that ends up in any criminal action of any sort, again, people are innocent until proven guilty. He's always denied any wrongdoing. I accept that. But here's the thing. We've now got more leaks from the Epstein files, which look, if they are legitimate, that he, via his staff, leaked confidential documents to Epstein when he was the UK trade envoy. And again, he is in an official role. He was being paid, I think, a couple of $100,000 a year in that role. But he passed confidential reports back in 2010 via his special assistant, reports of what had been discussed on visits to Hong Kong, Singapore, Vietnam and China. I mean, literally within 5 minutes being forwarded to Epstein. He's a traitor. He's a traitor to his then own mother's government at that point.
If this is the case, then this is an even bigger scandal than it currently is. And it's already a scandal that's probably going to bring down a prime minister, if we're being honest. Then that might happen, and who knows what then comes out of that. But this is the other thing about the Epstein files. There's so much more to come. We don't know. Now, maybe nothing comes of it.
We haven't even seen them all.
But the possibility that there's more stuff out there, and everybody's sort of sat here going, well, this is just what we know. Actually, who else could be implicated in all of this? And, honestly, let's be clear. If it's Peter Mandelson, it was going to extend to so many other people as well. Because, as you've pointed out, the sheer amount of influence somehow that he still had in the Labour Party over candidate selection, over all sorts of stuff like that. And it's been pointed out by people on the hard left in the Labour Party and in the sort of the blue Labour movement. Actually, what on earth was it that people were doing, giving this man this kind of influence, giving this man this kind of influence over their own careers when they knew, even tenuously, that there were allegations that, let's be clear, had ruined Prince Andrew's life years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And nothing was ever pinned on him.
As Lord Glassman, the Labour peer, Blue Labour, said on TV yesterday, this is what New Labour brings you, billionaires and paedophiles.
Yeah,
I mean, he went in strong. He went in strong. Well, the Prince and Princess of Wales said they are deeply concerned, in a statement released from Kensington Palace, deeply concerned by the continuing revelations of the Epstein files, and they said their thoughts remain focused on the victims. And again, it is important to keep saying that, but again, everyone keeps saying we're concerned about violence against women and girls. I do think it's an important thing. This is something that people should remember. I've seen a lot of people like these women, these young women, they knew what they were doing, like the girls, the 14-year-olds, they were paid for the massages they were doing. Okay, here's the thing. Just like with the grooming gangs in Rotherham and Rochdale and everywhere else, okay, they were just young prostitutes, as the police said. No, we're talking about vulnerable girls. In most of them, they'd been abused by a family member at home. They'd been a victim of sexual abuse themselves, or they were in care. They had alcoholic, drug-addled parents, or no parents in their lives at that time. They were deliberately targeted, or they were young girls trying to get ahead in things like modelling or something, and they were being promised a deal. And it's like, and again, they don't just like grab them off the streets and things. It's very clever. It takes a long time. But also the crucial thing is, people think this was just sex. It wasn't. If you actually read the details of some of the court cases and the testimony in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, and she's back in court today but apparently not speaking, we're talking about some very, very, very brutal acts. We're talking about sadomasochism. We're talking about Virginia Giuffre said she hoped sometimes she would pass out from the pain of what she was subjected to by Jeffrey Epstein. I do think it's, and again, when Katie Lamb read out in the House of Commons about what would happen to some of the girls involved in some of the grooming gang cases, and people were shocked. Like, no, people need to know. A girl being branded, with Mohammed, her abuser. Items stuck up. I mean, listen, it's just horrible and disgusting. But I think it's really important that we don't think that this was just a bunch of glamorous young women on the make, or just sort of, they had to have sex with some sweaty older men or whatever. What's the big... No, we are talking about children being groomed by abusers and then handed round their rich friends and being brutalised, beaten, tied up. I really think people need to understand quite how bloody awful this is.
And there are allegations of worse than that happening. Again, allegations, but people who, let's say, their whereabouts are not currently known. This is stuff that is
There are women who are still in hiding because they feared Epstein and his friends so much because the threats that were made against them.
And there were also discussed in some of the emails cases of people who have died and people seeking legal advice. And that's
a number have committed suicide,
and there's all
including Virginia Giuffre.
But I think that this is something that does need to be pointed out, because let's be clear, not everybody who's mentioned in any of these files is necessarily necessarily linked to anything bad. And some of this stuff, as you say, was at the sort of the considered, legal, glamorous, all this, that, and the other. But there's always layers to it.
If you call them models, then it's okay.
But this is how it works. You have that sort of, the high-end escort prostitute, whatever you want to call it, stuff, as the veneer of respectability, as seedy, frankly, as it is, because they think that if you've got that there, that will appeal to the tastes of certain people. But it hides what then comes underneath, which is, if we can offer you this, we can offer you this, we can offer you this, lower, 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 down the spectrum of awfulness. Because that is always how it is. That is there as a hide, basically as a shop window cover, basically to say, and look what else can be enticed, underneath.
But don't worry, this woman's she's wearing argent provocateur underwear, so it's all fine. She's a high-end escort.
And that is why, even when you consider, these women are empowered, they're making lots of money, it's still disgusting, it's still seedy, because it is used as a front, ultimately. Yeah. It is hiding something grossly immoral right at the bottom.
Absolutely. There is so much more to come on this story. So much more. 10:23 is the time. Lots more stories to talk about. We're going to talk about Jimmy Lai getting a 20-year sentence for a 78-year-old man. By the way, we're going to talk to Tom Tugendhat about that. It just totally shows how little gravitas Keir Starmer has on the world stage that the Chinese did this just straight after his visit. We're going to be talking about student loan debt. We're going to talk about residents refusing to pay their council tax when they basically got no local elections. I'm loving this. For you, no taxation without representation. That was the call, wasn't it? I want to hear your thoughts on all the big stories, but obviously particularly, can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? What do you think happens next? How soon? Today? This week? After the council elections? I want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Lots of common sense from you coming on the phones and on texts and tweets. Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal, and what happens next? Peter says get rid of him. He's been a disaster since day one. I mean, tell us something we don't know, Peter. Jesse says Keir Frank Spencer Starmer has done another whoopsie. Resign, man, for the good of what's left of the country. What do you think happens next, though? Who comes next, Jesse? Lawrence says sick of hearing the same rubbish on different days. Something drastic has got to be done. We need a general election now, says James. Josh says get that foul excuse for a Prime Minister and his party out of Parliament. Never let them come back. They've caused scandal after scandal and done nothing but horrible damage to our country. And Andrew says, I'm assuming not Prince. Of course he can. He's survived destroying the UK, mass illegal migration and the building of a Chinese spice centre. The world's his oyster. And Frank says, well, he certainly won't go voluntarily. He'll cling on right until the time his own party oust him. That's the thing. He ain't got any class or self-knowledge. So will he actually go before he's pushed? Who knows? Well, let's go to the phone lines. Ray is in Colchester. Hello, Ray. What do you want to say?
Oh, what another glorious day in the tragedy that is the UK.
Yep.
Listen, we're at the final curtain now. The play is coming to an end. And really, he's got two choices. And fundamentally, he will either announce that he is going, and which will leave all of the minions, and in many ways, they're way worse, behind him to scurry around and do what they do to make the deals to take over the poison chalice. That is the Prime Minister.
And it is, yeah.
Or, as I think he will probably do, knowing Starmer, who seems to double down on everything, that what he will do, he will announce that he is going to manfully carry on through because he has the mandate and the backing of the British people, and also all the MPs are 100% behind him, even though they've got their knives all sharpened and ready to plunge into his back. But nobody wants to take on that poison chalice prior to what I think everybody knows is going to be an absolute wipeout in the May elections.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we've got the Gorton by-election as well. And again, we've got, the things he's got to get through, like, PMQs this week. That's going to be another disaster. You just sort of think he's just going to keep limping on, doing more and more damage. And at the end of the day, those MPs, those ministers, the cabinet, where are all the cabinet ministers today supporting their man? Just like literally tumbleweed going across Westminster. They're going to be looking at their own seats. You've got to remember, these people have all got mortgages to pay as well. Great, thank you for your call. Appreciate that. Joe, it's a good Monday morning. Georgina's on the line in London. Georgina, do you reckon that Keir Starmer will stay?
Well, I think Keir Starmer's in the departure lounge already, Julia, to be honest. Good morning, my
Good morning.
darling.
Do you think he knows? Do you think he knows it?
Absolutely, he knows. He's probably sweating. He's sweating at the moment. He knows what's coming, and he knows there's no getting away from it, Julia. Morgan McSweeney's resignation came as no shock to me. Personally, McSweeney had two choices. The first one to fall on his sword, but we know that he was advised to resign as the Labour Party thinks that this will appease the electorate and save Starmer's job. The second choice was to get sacked, lose his face, lose his pensions, and never be heard from again. McSweeney's resignation, in my opinion, hasn't helped Starmer's cause. In fact, it will have the opposite effect by leaving Starmer now totally exposed to ridicule with no one in which he can deflect the blame. But I think, knowing Starmer's narcissistic tendencies, Julia, that he would rather call for a general election rather than hand his premiership over to anyone else in his party.
You really think he would rather basically take everyone down?
I think he will take everyone down with him. That is his tendency. McSweeney, in his resignation statement, stated that the appointment of Mandelson was wrong, but he didn't clarify further. And we know that McSweeney was close to Mandelson. In fact, he was Mandelson's protege. I do think that this is something that needs to be investigated more thoroughly, as we need more transparency as to the motives for appointing Mandelson in the first instance.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more, Georgina. Thanks very much. You pointed out, that's the thing. When Morgan McSweeney says the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson was wrong. Well, but who made that decision? Well, it wasn't you ultimately. And also, even it's like, I was badly advised. But if you appoint someone as your advisor, and they badly advise you, that's also on you. But of course, as we heard from Keir Starmer, he never turns on his staff. I carried the can. I never turn on my staff. You should never turn on your staff. That's what he said when he was running for the Labour leadership in 2020. Turns out he will absolutely turn on his staff. I agree with Georgina. I think he is such a narcissist, Benedict, that he could just I'll take you all down with me.
Do you know what? I mean, that would be the best thing he'd done for the country if he were to do that, to actually give the public the say, rather than leave it in the hands of Labour members, which is currently what we're going to get. And as we're all alluding to, he's a rubbish Prime Minister. He shouldn't be Prime Minister. That's not to say that what comes next, if the Labour Party gives it to us, will be any better.
Prime Minister Ed Miliband. I'm just going to say those words to you. 10:32 is the time. Up next, take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to Labour peer Lord Fuchs to find out whether he thinks that Manson, well, he's already gone, that Keir Starmer can survive. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 10:33 is the time. Let's get straight to my next guest. Lord George Fuchs is the Labour peer and former minister under Tony Blair. Wasn't everybody a former minister under Tony Blair that we talk about these days? Lord Fuchs, thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Good morning, Julia. Nice to be with you.
Lovely to speak to you. Interesting circumstances. Can I put the question to you that I'm putting to our audience today? Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? Do you think that he will follow Morgan McSweeney and resign?
I'll come to that, but I thought you might want to talk about the breaking news. The Prince and Princess of Wales have made a statement.
Well, I mean, they made it about 2 hours ago. I'd love to.
Very significant, because I tried to ask some questions about the then Prince Andrew in the House of Lords, and I was prevented from doing it because you can't ask any questions which reflect on the royal family.
Very interesting. Can we come back to that? Because I think
yes,
I 100% want to talk to you about Andrew, but can we start with the small matter of the Prime Minister?
Yes, okay.
So
no, I think he's going to stay, and rightly so. You see, the one thing that you're focusing on, Julia, is the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson. Now, at the time he was appointed, no one objected to it. Kemi Badenoch and all the...
Everyone objected to it.
No, not at the time. Kemi
no,
Badenoch...
they did. No, people were discussing it plenty at the time. What a terrible disaster it was.
No. In fact, you're wrong. You're wrong, Julia. If you look back, Nigel Farage said it was an inspired appointment. Michael Gove said it was the right thing. The former ambassador to the US, Lord Kim Darragh, said what a good appointment it was. And I saw Alex Burgart, on TV yesterday, and he was asked repeatedly which of the shadow cabinet people appointed him at the time.
There were plenty of other people. Cabinet, other ministers and party leaders may not have, but there were plenty of people, including us on this show. My audience will testify to that. We were saying this was not a good appointment. That he was a bad appointment.
Well, a lot of people said it was a good appointment. I mean, I didn't think it was a good appointment, but I didn't say so at the time. But because of his previous situation and a couple of resignations. But I think some people like Farage and Gove and Kim Darragh thought it was a good appointment because he was the right kind of person to deal with the mercurial person in the White House with
But either way, but hold on a minute. Either way, whatever, we already know what was in the public domain, not just about Madison's past, but also the fact that it was known at the time of his appointment that he had maintained his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and had stayed at his home. That was known. It was certainly known to security services. There's no way in the world, whatever Keir Starmer, whatever information he and his advisors were given, that it would not have contained that information. Morgan McSweeney, in his resignation letter, says the decision to appoint Peter Madison was wrong. But the person who took that decision was not Morgan McSweeney. It was not Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor. It was the Prime Minister, based on the advice from his two advisors. One of those has gone. But if the decision was wrong, that's on Keir Starmer, isn't it?
But you haven't dealt with the question of why Nigel Farage thought it was
But it's irrelevant. Nigel Farage isn't Prime Minister. It's irrelevant.
But he wants to be Prime Minister.
Yes, but it's irrelevant. And then I will hold him to account when he is Prime Minister.
It is. You think it's irrelevant. I don't.
No, okay.
And Michael Gove.
Michael Gove is the editor of The Spectator. He's not the Prime Minister.
He's a former cabinet minister. And Kim Darragh, who used to be ambassador to the United States.
Yes, and he's a regular on the show. But George,
he thought it was a good appointment.
Fine, that's fine. And you said that 3 times. But the point is, it wasn't a good appointment. We now know that the people advising the Prime Minister say it wasn't a good appointment, and the Prime Minister has said it was a bad appointment. Why does Morgan McSweeney have to resign if it's a resigning matter, but not the man who made the actual decision?
I don't know why Morgan McSweeney had to resign. Maybe it's because you keep putting pressure on him, just as you're trying to put pressure on the Prime Minister to resign. I think he's doing a very good job. He's very well thought of around the world by world leaders. He's implemented 2/3 of the manifesto of the Labour Party. I think he's doing an excellent job.
Well, you say he's doing an excellent job. Why then is he the most unpopular Prime Minister in living memory in the polls? Why are so many Labour backbenchers saying, we're not sure we want to keep you? Why is he likely to face losing a by-election? Why is he facing, we're told, according to the polls, voters have to make their own minds up, losing the local elections, the Welsh Senate elections and the Scottish Parliament elections in May? Why, if he's really good at what he's doing and he's so good and so popular, why are all those things true?
Well, what, do you know we're going to lose the by-election? Do you know that?
I don't know. I don't know, but there seems to be the expectation from many in the party.
No, not at all. No, Keir Starmer is going to talk to the Parliamentary Labour Party at 6 o'clock today. Mm-hmm. As far as I know it, only a handful of MPs have come out publicly and said he should go. The vast majority recognise that he won the last election. He's got a mandate until the next election, and he should get on with the job. And I think they'll be saying that.
Well, I mean, a lot of people would say he should get on with the job, but that maybe if he didn't spend his time taking bad advice from people he's appointed who are the protégés of people who've had to resign twice.
You're dealing with just one thing. You probably know Peter Mandelson better than I do. You go to some of the parties.
I don't go to parties with Peter Mandelson. He's been on my show once, and he's not a fan of me, and I'm not a fan of his.
Haven't you been to some of the London parties that he's been to from time to time?
No, I'm not aware. No, I'm not aware of ever having been at any event other than when I was a political editor.
I think a lot of the media people do go.
I'm sure they do. But I mean, someone else being another guest. He's not someone that I would telephone or he would telephone me. No, never stayed in his house. Never gone on a private yacht with him. Never. Sorry.
Same with me.
But here's the thing. You say we're just focusing on this. Here's the thing. When the Prime Minister thinks that the best appointment of our most senior diplomat in the world, a man who is going to have the highest level of security clearance because he's going to see access to defence, nuclear, I mean, goodness knows what level of massive levels of security vetting he needed. When he chooses to appoint a man who has had to resign twice already before in disgrace, who we know, and it was known at the time, the MI6 and others had been warning about his close links to Russians, Deripaska staying on his yacht. There was an issue with that when he was Trade Commissioner of the EU. His links with China. I remember discussing his links with China on my show when he was appointed and saying this was a bad appointment. The knowledge that he was busy mates, best pals with a man who had already got a conviction for soliciting a 14-year-old girl for prostitution. That tells us and by the way, a Prime Minister who had a teenage daughter at the time. That tells us this is not a man who makes good decisions.
Have you finished your monologue? Mm-hmm. Have you? Okay. You mentioned Russia. That's very interesting because who was it who appointed as their leader in Wales someone who is now in jail as a Russian spy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an absolute outrage.
Who was it who, it was Boris Johnson, who went on a Russian yacht. It was Boris Johnson.
Like Mandelson did, yeah.
It was Boris Johnson who appointed the son of a Russian spy to the House of Lords, and the House of Lords needs clearing up.
Yeah, completely outrageous. Yeah, and I have been critical of those things, but I hate to tell you, Lord Foulkes, you are deflecting somewhat. I mean, just because other people make a bad decision. Keir Starmer came into office saying that the grown-ups were in charge now. It was going to be a government of integrity. He was different. This was a different kind of premiership. And people like me who thought, I don't think this guy's going to be any good, but at least he might be vaguely competent and he's got some morals. Well, turns out neither is true.
When people put a counter-argument, you say they're deflecting. That's not true. You put your monologue, and I then
You're saying what about Nigel? I'm not defending what there's a man in prison quite rightly for what he was, who was the Welsh leader of the reform. But but you've said that. But I'm asking you about the Prime Minister, the leader of your party.
Does that not throw doubts on someone who wants to be Prime Minister? Who claims...
We're not discussing Nigel Farage.
Why not? But
he
why
faces
not?
plenty of scrutiny.
Exactly.
What?
That is the point I'm trying to make. You concentrate. You keep going. Because the media seem to have a sort of circling like vultures to try and get rid of the Prime Minister, but won't give the same kind of scrutiny to someone who wants to be
But there's been plenty of scrutiny of Nigel Farage, and the closer we get to a general election, the more... My good God, there are front pages about things he said in the playground when he was 16 years old. Of course there's scrutiny of Nigel Farage. The point is, Nigel Farage is not currently the Prime Minister of this country.
He wants to be Prime Minister. And
yes, but he is not currently the Prime Minister of this country.
Can I interrupt again? You grilled of your monologues, don't you? Now, why have you had him on your programme to put some of these serious questions to him? You haven't, have you?
Nigel Farage? He's not been on lately, no, but I absolutely would.
He doesn't go on any programme.
But he goes on plenty of programmes, he answers plenty of questions. People are not focused on that because he's not the Prime Minister.
But he wants to be Prime Minister. And if you have your way, he may be Prime Minister.
What do you mean I have my way? I have no preference on who becomes the next Prime Minister. I have no party allegiance whatsoever. I just want someone to run the country, be any good. And I'm still in two minds about who that may be. Well,
I think Keir Starmer is doing a very good job.
You think a man who made the appointment of Lord Mandelson and that role is doing a good job?
One decision.
That's one decision. What about the U-turns? What about the U-turns? 13 U-turns?
For which he has apologised.
13 U-turns.
He's apologised.
13 U-turns.
You call them U-turns. What I say they are is listening to the views of his members of Parliament and the public and altering. Just as I was against the original decision on winter fuel allowance. I made representations, as did many others.
But why didn't he listen to them before he made the decisions?
Because the decision was made. People were unhappy about it.
No, that's not how you govern. Most of the decisions he had a U-turn on have not actually been, they've not mandated in his government manifesto. These were decisions taken by the boys in Number 10, and then they're shocked that they're really unpopular with the public and with Labour backbenchers. He's had to backtrack on virtually everything he's tried to do because the truth is he doesn't really believe in anything, does he?
No, you've just... propounded another myth, another untruth about the boys in Number 10, who are now the two joint chiefs of staff.
Two women.
10.
Well, they're appointed. They're acting.
What
gender? Chiefs of staff.
What gender are they? They've been deputy chiefs of staff. They've been there.
They've done a great job.
Joint chiefs of staff. What gender are they, Julia? What gender?
I already said they're women.
Exactly.
Oh well, so well done him.
But why do you go on about...
I couldn't care less.
Yes, you do. You went on about the boys.
They are largely, as all governments have always been, they are largely boys in Number 10. I'm talking about boys, meaning his little coterie of advisors. The guys, the boys, including women.
They're boys, even if they're girls. I see.
Guy, you use the term, oh, for goodness sake. You know perfectly well. Yeah, what I love about this, George, folks, I love that you're coming out to defend the Prime Minister, but what is fascinating is your defence is constantly, but look over here, as opposed to the decisions he makes. But also, why is it that why are Cabinet Ministers not coming out and defending him? Why do they have to send out a junior minister in Jackie Smith to defend the Prime Minister today? If everyone's so supportive of him, why are they not all putting out statements fully supportive of the Prime Minister?
But they are. They're making it clear they do support.
No, they're not.
Of course they are.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They're not volunteering to do the media round.
Have you spoken to any?
I know a lot of them, but they're not on the media. They're not. They are not.
Have you spoken to any?
No, they are not. Where are they? Have you got a statement from any of them this morning? No, not one. Not one.
Who was doing the rounds yesterday morning? Pat McFadden.
Before the resignation.
He's a cabinet, but he's a cabinet.
Before the resignation.
But you say cabinet ministers aren't out, and
I asked that this morning. That was yesterday. It was 24 hours ago.
Oh yes. Have you asked? Who have you asked?
I mean, I admire you for this, George. I really do. All credit to you. All credit to you for trying. I'm not entirely convinced my audience are going to be convinced themselves, though.
Well, I do my best, and I'm convinced that he's doing a very good job, and I'm convinced that you are one of the vultures. Certainly, because you want to scalp. You want to scalp. You want to say, "Hey, we've got rid of a prime minister. Aren't we wonderful?" And
no, I couldn't. I mean, I don't. I want integrity and competence and honesty in public office. And I felt that way about Boris Johnson and about David Cameron and about Theresa May and about Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. As my audience can testify over the years, I'm an equal opportunities requirer of integrity and competence in public office. I don't care. If it was my own brother, I would still want them out of office if I didn't think they could exercise those qualities.
Which of those Tory prime ministers do you think were competent?
Definitely not Boris Johnson, definitely not Liz Truss. No, none of them. No, maybe David Cameron for a while, but then it turned out he didn't have integrity. But there we are. He was the most competent of the lot, yeah, I would say. But apart from the whole, let's just open up the entire...
Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, two very competent prime ministers.
Tony Blair was competent, absolutely. The trouble with
Gordon Brown.
No, I don't think Gordon Brown was. I don't think he was competent. I think the evidence is pretty clear on that from the public as well. Right, we're going to have to leave it there because we're way over time. But I mean, all credit to you making the effort though on that, George. Lord Foulkes, Labour peer, former minister under Tony Blair, chuckling away through that. Benedict Spence.
That was magnificent. He's more evasive than me when I found myself at a party with Peter Mandelson. I mean, that was incredible. But I mean, he put up a good fight. But I think it didn't really convince anybody. I mean, it's nice to know that somebody still thinks the Prime Minister is doing a good job.
I think I did go to a party Lord Mandelson had when he was Northern Ireland Secretary, but you went to those parties because they were government ministers and you were a political editor.
Yeah, I don't actually, I can't remember the last time I was at, I think was at one, and Grayson Perry was there as well. Was it a good party this weekend? What did you get up to this weekend?
I did have a party this weekend. We're all recovering. 10:49 is the time. We're going to take a break. We're going to talk about what the hell, in fact, annoyingly, we got sidetracked. We didn't get on to the issues with Andrew, which George Foulkes did want to talk about, but we are going to talk about Andrew up next with Dickie Arbiter, the former press secretary to the late Queen. This is Talk.
UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. 10:53 is the time. Let's talk right now. We've talked a lot about Madison. Let's talk more about Andrew, former Prince Andrew, now Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, and he's been in the news for the last 2 days for two very different reasons. One is his links with Epstein in terms of models and others being taken to Buckingham Palace when the Queen was away in Balmoral, and also latest revelations that have come out of those 3 million Epstein files that he did, is alleged, basically pass on confidential information when he was trade envoy representing the UK and paid for that job. Let's talk to Dickie Arbiter about that, former press secretary to the late Queen and a former royal journalist too. A very good morning to you once again, Dickie.
Morning, Julia.
I mean, look, the allegations involving women, Virginia Giuffre, another woman, police looking into that, those are very, very, very troubling. The Prince and Princess of Wales have said they are, deeply concerned, and they're concerned, their thoughts remain with the victims of Epstein. But this latest revelation of basically, of what was Andrew doing a Mandelson, to all intents and purposes, if these documents, no man has been accused of a crime yet. If these or charged, if these documents are legitimate, basically within minutes of getting information, passing it on to Jeffrey Epstein. What do you make of that?
Well, it's clearly a case, if proven by the Metropolitan Police, and they've got to investigate this one, of misconduct in public office.
Yeah.
It's a serious crime, and they have to prove it. A lot of what Andrew was doing was in the public domain. As far as paperwork is concerned, that wasn't, obviously. And whatever he passed over, the Met have got to decide, is there a case to answer for? Do they know what papers were handed over? Maybe it's all contained within the 3.5 million documents that were released over 10 days ago.
Yeah, I mean, it is extraordinary. I mean, the allegations against Peter Mandelson and, his Wiltshire and London homes were searched by police rather publicly over the weekend. But, there's going to be some big question marks about the police, whether they go in for Prince Andrew, wherever he is right now, in the estate in Norfolk. But there are some really big issues over what on earth is he thinking. He's the UK trade envoy. He's representing his own mother's government at the time and handing over information that he's been given privately about what's happened on these visits to China and Vietnam and elsewhere, and then handing that over to his mate who lets him come and stay in his house or come on his island. I know the key thing with misconduct in public office is with that charge, there has to be sort of proven, knowledge. You had to be doing it with intent. But I mean, why would he be handing that information other than he thinks that information would be useful to Jeffrey Epstein?
And useful to him, as he made very clear in that interview in 2019, that bit of car crash interview, he was using Epstein in the same way as Epstein was using him.
Yeah.
Although I think Epstein was getting more out of Andrew than Andrew was getting out of Epstein. But the police have got to prove misconduct in public office. Whether they go in boots and all the same way as they did with Mandelson over the weekend remains to be seen. A lot of Andrew's stuff, some of it is in Norfolk, some of it is in Royal Lodge, Windsor, and some of it probably is in the vaults of Buckingham Palace. So the police have got to decide, is there a case to answer for? Are they going to investigate, and how are they going to do it?
But the thing about this is, and it's interesting, my last guest, Lord Fowkes, was saying it when he, as a peer, when he tried to raise concerns about Andrew in the Lords, he was told, no, you're in the Lords, you're not allowed to raise any issues about the royal family, which is an outrage, that they shouldn't. But the key thing is, when there were these allegations from Virginia Giuffre, credible allegations, it went to a court case, a civil case, he settled for about 10 million quid, partly paid for by the Queen, as we've discussed many times before, the late Queen, that the police at no point ever bothered to interview Andrew. Now, given that people get interviewed over writing a tweet that someone doesn't like, misgendering someone, as it's claimed, but the police didn't think it was worth their time to go and interview a man about the allegation that he had sex with a 17-year-old who'd been trafficked by a convicted paedophile, is a bit staggering, let's be honest.
It is staggering, a legitimate question, Julia, and you're absolutely right. By convention, politicians don't discuss the royal family in the House of Commons. That has been going on for decades, and that is the decision that they have made. But as far as police investigating, yes, you're absolutely right. They'll investigate somebody who's misgendering somebody, calling them Mr. instead of Miss or Ms. But when it comes to something serious, they seem to throw their hands up and put their hands over their ears. papers.
But especially when it's royals. I mean, bearing in mind, you know, those allegations, front page of the papers and the Times and others about, and Sunday Times about the King, and, you know, carrier bags full of cash for one of his charities from a Middle Eastern businessman. As soon as he became king, completely gone away. But I mean, these are legit. I mean, you know, no one should be above the law.
And no one is above the law and shouldn't be. You're absolutely right. And the police really have to get their act together and investigate properly, whether it's the royal family, whether it's prime minister, whether it's politicians, whoever it is. If a crime has been committed, they investigate it. But the problem is with the police, they will differentiate to what is a crime and what isn't a crime, what they can investigate and what they can't. They're being very selective. They're protecting their own because they won't investigate their own. They're protecting the royal family. They're protecting politicians. They've got to start acting like policemen.
Yes, yeah, without fear or favour. I think there's been a lot of political pressure. I mean, what do you make of Prince William and Catherine expressing that they are deeply concerned by the continuing revelations from the Epstein files? Because, of course, this is getting very close to home with Andrew. But, I mean, there's no love lost between the King and the Prince of Wales and Andrew, is there?
No, it's been getting close to the royal family for years now. And the fact that William and Catherine have expressed their concern is a step in the right direction. Now we need to hear more from the King and other members of the royal family. Probably the King will nail it as far as the royal family is concerned. But the fact that William and Catherine have come out with something is going to prompt the King to do something.
Yeah, indeed. He's not out and about today. Actually, and Prince William is off to Saudi Arabia later this evening. I imagine all public events, they are going to be asked about this now. It's not going to go away. Dick Arbiter, thank you so much for joining us, former press secretary to the late Queen. Lots more to come, and I want to hear more of your thoughts. Lots of calls on the board. We'll get to as many as we can. 0344 499 1000. Well, talk to Andrew if you want, but also, can Keir Starmer survive the Manderson scandal? Let me know what you think. This is Talk.
UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, good morning to you. Welcome back to the show. 3 minutes past 11 is the time. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And we have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff, the second one to go for the Prime Minister. His resignation yesterday of the Peter Mandelson scandal. We've now had another resignation from number 10. It's only 11 in the morning. Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned, issuing a statement saying, "I've decided to stand down to allow a new number 10 team to be built. I wish the PM and his team every success." Well, bear in mind that Tim Allen was another one of those people who worked very closely with Peter Mandelson before Tony Blair got into office. He was working hand in glove with Alistair Campbell back in sort of 95, 96, 97 years to get Tony Blair into office, and then went off and made, frankly, shed loads of cash as a lobbyist to the government that he'd helped get elected. Very sharp guy, very clued in, very well connected, and Tim Allen has gone. He was brought in only very recently, of course, to deal with all the fallout of all the other resignations we've seen. The question I'm putting to you today, I think it's become even more urgent. Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? What happens next? Well, we've already had a second resignation. At this point, it is perfectly likely that Keir Starmer will be gone by the end of the week, in a few days. Who knows? By today, will he make it as far as the 6 o'clock meeting he's got with backbench Labour MPs? Where are all those cabinet ministers? Where are they all? I mean, can you literally silence? That is the sound of all those cabinet ministers coming out to bat for the Prime Minister, insisting he must stay on. He's got the mandate from the British people. But no, they are not out there. Junior Minister and Jackie Smith was out doing the rounds today, and she made a valiant effort. We just had George Fawkes on. There's a few making a valiant effort, but realistically, does he last? Is he even going to wait until the next by-election in 2 weeks' time? Is he going to wait until after the local elections? Is that what the people who are vying for his job want him to do? Do they want it to wait longer? Are we going to wait for some more Epstein revelations? They are coming thick and fast, not just about what's going on in government, but of course also for Palace as well, with the latest revelations today about Andrew, the former prince. Love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Text the word talk in your message on to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls to charge at the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate message. We're also going to be talking about more illegal migrants have come to Britain under Keir Starmer than any other Prime Minister. Well done. See, another one of his great achievements, it's not the Epstein scandal that's going to do for the Prime Minister, it's all the other inadequacies and failures. Also, we're going to be talking about the Briton Jimmy Lai, who's been jailed for 20 years in Hong Kong. He's 78 years old. It's a death sentence. He's going to die behind bars. This is under China's national security law. But remember the Prime Minister had all that influence with the Chinese and got so much out of his trip to Beijing? Yeah, what he got out of it was a British man. He's got a British passport and has had it for 30, 40 years, has been sentenced to basically die behind bars. What's his crime? Well, protesting for democracy. Yeah, well done, Prime Minister. Such great success. We'll talk about that. Joining me for the chat today, Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator. I mean, that news, I wonder if there are going to be more to come. Charitably, let's say Tim Allen has been part of the ancien regime. Yeah. He's part of that gang, the Mandelson gang. He's now leaving, so they can just appoint a whole load of new people. It's the idea, and we have the same issue with the Prime Minister himself. It's the idea that there is this amazing. That was the A team. The A plus team is waiting behind the scenes. Bearing in mind how bad the A team were, right? We had Sue Gray. She knows how government works. How rubbish was she? Morgan McSweeney, Mr. Election Strategist Guru. How rubbish was he with his poor advice to the Prime Minister? Every U-turn, everything. The guy, people, if you think that guy is a great strategist, I've got a lovely bridge just across the road for just there to sell you. And now he's lost someone who is definitely a deft hand at communication, but maybe even for Tim Allen, a man who has made millions from being a good communicator and advising people. You can't advise someone who won't take good advice, surely.
I mean, the gig's up. I think. But we already knew that the gig was up even before this. But this just makes it clear that actually it's not simply number 10 going, right, well, we'll get rid of this guy and that'll be it. That'll sort of stem the bleeding. Because whether or not this was Tim Allen, being, loyal to Morgan McSweeney or just deciding, look, I've had enough of all of this, it starts then the drip feed of people who might then start to leave of their own volition, who were not implicated in any aspect of the Mandelson story at all. The next stage then is cabinet ministers. Do the cabinet ministers do what they did to Margaret Thatcher and sit down with the Prime Minister and say, well, look, I'll support you, but I can't guarantee that everybody else will. And if you do get that sort of drip feed and they all say the same thing, but all it then takes is one of them to go, well, I'm not going to back you, I think you need to go. Because once that person breaks cover, they may not become, believe that they're going to be Prime Minister themselves, but that's the point.
But if they thought, if you're at top echelons of the Labour Party, and if you think Keir Starmer is going to stay and is going to still be the centre of power in your party and the heart of government, you would want to stick by him. If you think, however, it's not looking good and he might just be out by the end of the week, let alone by after the May elections, then you don't want to be more associated with him and have mud on your face when the next scandal comes out. We've already established that appointing Mandelson as the ambassador to Washington was the wrong decision. We know that because he was sacked. We knew from PMQs last week. Remember, we all had that sort of gasp, like, oh, when Kemi Baigner asked him, did you know, but when you made the appointment, that he was continued his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein? And yes, I did, he said. That was the moment when, whoa, whoa, whoa. So then he's blamed his advice, he's blamed the security vetting. They're going to, the processology has started, they're going to reassess the vetting. There's no way in the world that MI5, MI6, whoever it was doing the vetting, didn't give them all the information. That's their job, it's what they do. So is it the National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powley, who has to go next? We've lost the Director of Communications, lost the Chief of Staff. At that point, everyone the Prime Minister has appointed is saying it was the wrong decision to make that decision. But he's the one who made the decision.
Yeah, and this is always the staggering thing when it comes to this beginning of the end, this drip feed process. You're going to go either way. We all know he's going to go. So why not just go?
And also, whether it's today, this week, after the Gorton by-election, after the local elections, no one sane. I mean, I don't know what miracle would have to happen, because I can see no good news coming down the line. We're not going to have an economic miracle and everything's suddenly going to be hunky-dory. We've all got an extra 10 grand in our bank accounts. That's not going to happen. So I don't know what they're waiting for. It's going to be just as bad, is it not? But here's the thing. Let me just play the clip. And I played it earlier, and I just do think this is relevant. This is a man we know as Keir Starmer. When he was not Prime Minister, he was running for the leadership of the Labour Party. Very different person. Who knew who he was? Who knew he was when he became Prime Minister? Who knew this was January 2020. And this is what he had to say when he's on stage and he's asked about stuff. I think this was in relation, to Boris Johnson turning on his stuff. But this is what he had to say.
Hear me out. I had 8,000 staff for 5 years as the Director of Public Prosecutions. And I acted, I hope, in the right way with them, which is when they had victories, I celebrated on their behalf. I picked up awards on their behalves. And when they made mistakes, I carried the can. I never turn on my staff, and you should never turn on your staff.
You never turn on your staff, but it would be he had. Now, we don't know the circumstances in which Tim Allen's left. I don't think there's any pressure for Tim Allen to go. But there's an argument there where you'd be going, please don't go. It's going to look really bad if you go. So why has he chosen to go now?
Yeah, and the thing is, I imagine it's because he's decided that the jig is up and that it's best for him just to
get the hell out.
Yeah, basically to go before but the entire edifice sort of comes crashing down. Look, this is not somebody who sort of desperately needs this job or anything like that.
No.
They can just decide, oh, look, this isn't working, it's not for me, I
came in, I wanted to try and turn things around and I can't. Well,
exactly.
Tell you what's really interesting, of course, we've already seen, the fallout from all of this is just extraordinary. We're likely to get a new Prime Minister as a result. This is the last thing. We've got Mandelson having the police searching his home in Wiltshire and his home in London. He, of course, has denied any wrongdoing. But he's facing urge to, pay back the £55,000 golden goodbye he got when he was sacked. I don't know why people are getting golden goodbyes when they get sacked for the job. OK, no one's accusing him of misconduct as US ambassador. But my thing is, if the Prime Minister thinks that money shouldn't be paid, well, you should pay us back that money, mate, because you're the one who pointed him to the job. And he says Mandelson lied to him. If you lie to someone to get a job, you don't get a payoff. It's gross misconduct. You don't get a payoff. So why the hell is my tax money and your tax money being used to pay this guy off? And by the way, he doesn't need the money. We've got Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor. He's also under fire as well. Again, another one of that Blair coterie. I always think the key thing here is just this thing that basically there was just no one of the new generation, the younger generation, who was any good. They had to basically bring in a whole load of, as someone keeps saying, putting the old Blair band back together. These are all old Blairites. And I don't think that's what people thought they were getting when they elected Keir Starmer. Certainly not what the membership of the party thought they were getting.
I was going to say, if you put to the electorate at the last election, would you like New Labour 0.20? And it's the same guys, but just a new guy at the top. I think most people have gone, no, I seem to remember voting against that a couple of years ago and not wanting it ever to come back. But that is what we've been given. But I think it speaks simply to the lack of talent in the Labour Party in general. And this is not something that is specific to the Labour Party. We saw this with the Tories in the dying days of the last government. Actually, both political parties, major political parties, have been hollowed out. They've replaced, once upon a time we did actually have quite a, good coterie of competent people, even if, they didn't always work out.
You could disagree with someone, but you could think they were intellectually,
This is not me being sort of morose for the sake of it. There has been noticeably a lowering of the standards of the sort of people we have in politics, and the Labour Party is as as big a symbol of that as the Tories were. So this is why you then have to end up bringing those people back. But the problem is, those are already people who have lost elections in the past. They might have won them, but they've also lost them, and you have to ask yourself, why?
OK, here's the thing for the Labour Party. Who's the better bet, though? Do you want to keep Keir Starmer limping on and take the heat for the by-elections and local elections, Scottish elections, Welsh elections? Or you're thinking, maybe we could do better if we change sooner? The problem is the process for electing a new Labour leader is very lengthy, so they're unlikely to be in place. There's talk about at the weekend maybe some sort of caretaker person put in. Now, we've not really. There's one thing a Prime Minister staying in office after they have resigned, waiting for the next person. You have that they've resigned from the leadership, but they are still the Prime Minister. I'm not sure whether there's a mandate for that. And you've got the likes of your Angela Rayner's, who, when like Boris Johnson steps down, say, well, he got the mandate. There's no mandate for the next person. There needs to be an election. There will be a lot of pressure because their words are going to come back and splat them in the face for whoever gets the leadership of the party. In fact, it's interesting. We've already moved on to that now. We're already here's Karma's toast. We're moving on to hold an election, which they will not want to do given where they are in the polls. Leadership contenders on manoeuvres. Angela Rayner. Getting your hair done, putting it on Insta. Angela Rayner, this is embarrassing. Please stop acting like you're an influencer living in Dubai. It's just not a good look. But she's got this HMRC investigation over not paying stamp duty there. That is dragging its feet. She obviously wants that to get done with so she can run for an election. We've got Wes Streeting. He's another Mandelson protege, he wants that to sort of go away before any leadership election. Andy Burnham, not yet an MP, hoping that he can actually get a by-election. He needs the NEC, Keir Starmer, not to block his chances of getting in. The only person I think who really wants to have an election sooner rather than later would be Ed Miliband. And then there's talk about him, if he did become leader, even if Labour were down in the polls, he would offer some sort of coalition with Zach Polanski of the Green Party. I mean, guys, be careful what you wish for.
If I were Keir Starmer, what I'd do is I would offer to resign my seat and let Andy Burnham stand in it. If all of the other cabinet ministers who all want his job said, it's time to go, Prime Minister, I'd be sat there going, all right, this is what I'm going to do right at the tail end. Let's see what you do about that. Obviously, it's not going to happen, but that would be the...
He should stand up and give a speech and go, look at this bunch of losers. I'm rubbish, but they're even worse than me. But you know what? That's what really bothers me, because we are a great country. I know we spend a lot of time saying lots of things are going wrong. The reason why so many of us on this show and so many presenters and so many of our audience are when we say, the country's going to the dogs, it's because we know what a great country we have been and what we are underneath and what we could be in the future. And we are so frustrated with politicians who have failed us again and again and again and again and not done the bidding of the British people. If they actually done what they said they would do, we would be in a good state. And there's that thing where we've got this bunch of sort of pygmies trying to lead giants. We are a nation that could be great again. This lot, none of this lot are going to do that.
It's all fixable. And the point is that none of them want to fix it, because fixing it will require hard work. And it will require, excuse me, a degree of practicality, not ideology.
Yeah.
And that's always the problem with the Labour Party. It's why New Labour, in so many ways, was very effective at the start, because it was able to sideline a lot of those sort of tendencies, those desires to be overly ideological about nut stuff and go, no, that's harebrained, we're not going to do that. It's why it was, yes, why Tony Blair was able to keep on going, even after very unpopular invasions of countries overseas and lots of other things, because there was at least that perspective, that perception rather, of practical approaches to certain policies.
Yeah.
This lot doesn't have that. Even when they try to be practical, the backbenchers will go, ha, no, you can't do that because we're ideologically driven. That is a large part of the problem, and this is what we are going to face. When we get the leadership election, which we're going to, which is a series, and this is unprecedented in many ways, which is that we're going to have this contest between a series of people who are completely unbound by the fear of the electorate, because they'll be sat there thinking, we've got a huge majority, we're not doing very well in the polls, now is the time to double down on being as left-wing as possible, because that's what we've convinced ourselves everybody wants. Bond markets, they don't exist.
And if we only get one term, then we may as well, let's go out in a blaze of glory.
Exactly.
This is going to be, wow, this is going to be a rip-roaring week. It really is. I want to hear your thoughts. Yeah, give us, seriously. And again, hers was about her preparation for the public. That it was genuinely a communications issue rather than anything else. Can Keir Starmer survive the Manderson scandal? What happens next? He's now lost 2 members of staff over this. He could lose the third, could lose Jonathan Powell as well. I mean, how many new members of the team is he going to have? Also, let's talk about Prince Andrew again, as was Prince Andrew leaking confidential trade envoy documents to Epstein, according to the Epstein files. If these are genuine, there's no reason to think they are not, but of course, I'm sure he would deny any wrongdoing, but he could now face a proper criminal probe. Given that the Met Police, in their infinite wisdom, while they have time to bother people for supposedly misgendering people, i.e. using the correct language of people who claim to be the opposite sex of what they are, and tweets like which they think are hurty, but apparently didn't think it was worth their while to actually go and interview the prince over the allegation, a very serious allegation, that he had had sex with a 17-year-old, okay, not below the age of consent, but at 17-year-old Virginia Giuffre, when she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. And from what we can gather from their exchanges and their messages, let's be honest, everyone dealing with with Jeffrey Epstein would have known that these girls were being trafficked. Oh,
I think that was quite clear. That is, of course,
brought a girl for you.
It's the horrendous nature of all of this, and it's the same actually. There is a sort of a replication, a comparison rather, that you can make with the grooming gangs, which is that at so many stages of all of this, people know, and they just sort of accept it. They just sort of go, oh well, what are you going to do? That's what happens. You described it earlier, the way that people were just sort of described as prostitutes or on the make, and it's the mind-bendingness of going, no, we're talking about children or even adults who are very vulnerable. None of this is good, and having it sort of put out there as sort of, well, it was glamorous parties, very glamorous people, and it's the facade.
And the girls are smiling.
Exactly. Oh, they're very glamorous sort of 6-foot Russian models or whatever.
So that's okay.
And you're just thinking, how did they get from A to B? Who else is there? These are the ones that we're allowed to see because this was what was projected. What else is underneath the surface?
As I said yesterday, I wrote in my Sun column, you've got girls being ferried from in mini cabs to be raped above a kebab shop in Rochdale, and you've got girls being ferried by private jet to a Caribbean island to be raped, but by a billionaire. But you know what? And I say, I likened it to Julia Roberts playing Vivian, the street walking prostitute in Pretty Woman, and Richard Gere's character says, I'm gonna put you up in this beautiful apartment and gonna give you spending money. And she went, hey, that's just geography. I'm getting you off the streets. That's just geography. It's the same crime. It's just a more glamorous version of the same crime.
And the thing is, it does happen all over the world. And this is partly why I think it was sort of accepted. Because rich and powerful circles around the world engage in this sort of activity. We all know about certain countries outside of Europe where actually lots of Europeans travel to regularly because there's lots of money to be made in certain industries, and it's portrayed as sort of glamorous, and they're on Instagram and they're on TikTok, but we all know what's actually going on there. And they might like to portray it as glamorous because they want to portray it as glamorous, because otherwise it's less socially acceptable. But we've all heard about the downsides, the dark stories that come out of this as well. Southeast Asia is another very good example. And it's just this continuation where people turn a blind eye because they just shrug and they go, well, it's rich men. doing what rich men do. And that's not an acceptable excuse.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting, the debates, a lot of it over the weekend in the media was about a lot of women MPs, Labour MPs, women peers, Aisha Hazarika and others, who basically, being very angry at, like, again, came up with the conversation with the Labour peer earlier on the show. So this boys' club in number 10 and this boys' club in the party where, just perhaps not seeing the horror of someone being mates with somebody who solicited a 14-year-old girl, seeing the full horror of that because they're men, not women. I don't quite go with that, because I'm thinking, my husband, for me it's more about being a parent. I think you're even more horrified by it. But, my husband would be just as horrified as I would be about that. It doesn't have to be a woman to feel that way. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. There's so much more I want to talk about. We are going to be talking about Jimmy Lai getting sentenced to 20 years behind bars. He's 78. It's a death sentence. But well done, Keir Starmer. Well done for getting a British national who's done nothing wrong other than fight for democracy out of prison in Hong Kong when you went to China, because that was another one of your great successes. We're also going to be talking about the residents who refused to pay council tax over the undemocratic cancellation of local elections. Good for them, I say. You have to pay your taxes, but no taxation without representation. If you don't get to vote for your local councillors, why should you have to pay a tax which they impose on you? It's a fair point, isn't it? 11:23 is the time. I want to hear from you, especially with the second resignation. We've heard now from Tim Allen, the Director of Communications. Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? Does he make it to PMQs this week? This is Talk, the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:26 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and this is Talk, the home of common sense. Let's get straight to your calls about, can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal and what happens next? Let's go to Andrew in Hertfordshire. Good morning to you, Andrew.
Good morning, Julia. I hope you're fit and well.
Thank you.
He will survive. There will be an event that happens this month. That's priced in, and then there'll be the local elections. The markets will hunt the pound down and the bonds because they'll realise that he has to go then. The Labour Party will limp him on till then.
Until after the local elections.
And then the country will have to go to an election.
Hold on a minute. See, you and the markets will tank. The bond markets will, put up interest. And do you think they'll do that? Why?
Because they'll have to, because all of their funding and plans will mean huge taxes. So they will, in effect, be a busted flush.
Okay, right. Because I was going to say whether it's if they think there's a prospect of, for instance, any of the candidates who want to run for election, they're going to be wanting to splash the cash, and you got your Andy Burnhams, your Ed Miliband's have no, it would appear, understanding of how we actually borrow money to fund everything in this country, and the markets would be going, this is going to go horribly wrong.
Yeah, because it's going to cost the markets money. They don't want to lose that money. And then if you look at you and the way you do your show, you always have someone ready to pick up the reins. There's no one in the Labour Party, and the Labour Party has to have a massive fight now because it's been run by Peter Mandelson for 40 years.
That's interesting. Oh, he's been busy making money on rich Russians' boats. Can I ask you, you say, look, there's no obvious successor. Who is your best case scenario next Labour Prime Minister, and who is your worst case scenario?
The only one that would stand a chance is the current Home Secretary.
Do you think Shabana Mahmood? I don't think so. I'm always amazed that people go, I think she's not tried and tested enough yet.
No, we all agree on that point, but I'm saying the best case is if they plumbed for her. Best case, I can't think of anybody that would be better. The worst case, 100% would be Lammy.
Lammy? Got what? Lammy worse than Ed Miliband?
Oh, 100%. If he couldn't part his hair if his brains were dynamite.
I've never heard that. Andrew, that's an amazing description. I tell you what, I don't even think that the Parliamentary Labour Party is stupid enough to elect David Lammy as their leader. Andrew, thank you very much for that. Benedict, that has tickled us.
I've got to write that down. That's a great
Absolutely brilliant.
Wow.
Patrick, you've got a hard act to follow there. Patrick's in East Yorkshire. What do you want to say, Patrick?
Oh, Empress, you're nearly there. You're nearly running the country, my love. I tell you, you must be absolutely rubbing your hands. There's no way that this Prime Minister is going to front up. He was supposed to make a speech this morning, he cancelled it. He puts a tweet out every day. When something looks as though it's going to happen, he always goes on a Monday or a Tuesday before PMQs, so he gets out of those. I'm going fishing with him later on, you know. He's a big slimy worm. That's what he is. He's a big slimy worm.
Do you think he survives the week? Not at all, no?
No, he shouldn't. He should put him in a cell with Andrew and get rid of the key and let's be off and let's get this country going again, because you're on about who can take over. The only people who can take over is reform. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what we're going to do is be left with another set of muppets off that front row. We can't have crying Reeves, can we? We can't have tax dodger. Lammy can't do masterman. Who the hell are we going to have?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's not a great, sort of kind of riches for us, is it? Patrick, thank you very much indeed. Can for your messages as well. Paul says about Keir Starmer, the only thing keeping him afloat is the lack of any replacement with any credibility, as opposed to the gents were making. With any credibility, intellectual acumen or any basic understanding of working class people. Labour are bleeding out in the gutter. Mark says, I reckon there's loads more to come in the Epstein files. They were all in on it. Remember when they were all far-right conspiracy theories until they weren't. Shirley says, I hope not. We want him and his cronies gone. Rory says, who cares? Different sock puppets on the same old hands. Wake up to how power works. Well, there we are then. Right, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to be back with Reform UK councillor Darren Grimes, find out what he thinks of this, and also, of course, the wonderful, I'm sure, moment of pride for the Prime Minister that more illegal migrants have come to Britain under Keir Starmer than under any other British Prime Minister. Well done, sir. Well done. Another one of those many, many, many great achievements. Also going to talk to the Conservative former Security Minister, Tom Tugendhat, about the jailing of Jimmy Lai, the Hong Kong British passport-holding activist for democracy in Hong Kong and by the Chinese. We'll talk about that as well. This is Talk.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Indeed, 11:32 is the time. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. I should point out, actually, there are breaking news in the last half hour that Tim Allen, the Prime Minister's Director of Communications, has also resigned. Now it's the second resignation. He's not resigned over links with Epstein or Manderson. Well, other than that, he did work very closely with Manderson, trying to get, and succeeding in getting Tony Blair elected in 1997. But he stepped into the job only a few months ago, basically after the last one resigned. Now, bearing in mind, they've had 2 or 3 different people in the role. One of them, by the way, was a guy called Matthew Doyle, another advisor to various Labour leaders over the years. Matthew Doyle is now, he's been quit in March 2025. There's now big question marks about his appointment in the first place, because he campaigned, it was known at the time he was appointed, he had campaigned for someone who was convicted paedophile, who was accused of paedophile crimes, and he helped campaign in this guy's local elections when he was actually already under allegations of basically being a paedophile. So, I mean, you know, got some big question marks going here, haven't we? Let's go to my next guest right now. He's Darren Grimes. He's a councillor with Reform UK. He's also deputy leader of Durham County Council. A very, very good morning to you, Darren.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I mean, just where do we even start? I mean, I want to talk to you about some actual policies that affect people, but, you know, who is the Prime Minister affects people as well. But Keir Starmer, people are saying, like, you know, he could be out today by the end of the week. No one thinks he's going to be surviving to the summer, that's for sure. He's lost his Director of Communications today, someone most people probably would never heard of. He's been in the job such a short period of time. He lost his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, yesterday, specifically because he gave the advice to the Prime Minister to appoint Peter Manderson, and he says that was the wrong decision. Do you think Keir Starmer survives?
I can see Keir Starmer hobbling on, Julia, until May. I actually think that there are too many competing interests around that cabinet table for them to make the ultimate decision to be off with him just yet.
You think basically because they don't know, they haven't got like an obvious, you know, king over the water, even, you know, Mr. King of the North, Andy Burnham, because he's not even an MP yet. Because they can't agree who they want, they'd rather just sit and wait.
Exactly, Julia, and I hope the last one out remembers to turn off the lights because, of course, as you well know, we've got Ed Miliband's climate targets to meet, so we cannot let that slip.
Of the options on the table, because, again, if we think he's going, he ain't going to call... I mean, people say, we could just call an election, goes to the King. He's not going to call an election, realist. No. I mean, I may be wrong, I don't think he is. In which case, they're going to hobble on... Who, as I put to a call a few minutes, who's your best case and who's your worst case scenario in terms of, forget for reform's chances, for the country? Yeah. Let's think of the country.
For the country, I'd say that the less likely option that the Labour Party would select would be someone like Wes Streeting, Julia. But, you know, I think he probably would be the best worst case for the country. But ultimately, I think it'll be someone like Ed Miliband. I don't think it'll be Shabana Mahmood, unlike one of your previous callers, Julia. But it'll be between Ed Miliband and Angela Rayner.
What a choice.
I know, absolutely. I mean, it is a depressing state of affairs, isn't it? If you were talking about Tony Blair, imagine this circus happening under that Blair government. You know, say what you want about Blair, but my God, did he have some element of professionalism over this lot of clowns?
Well, there is an element also. I mean, I watched him much more closely because I was a political journalist in Westminster, you know, and interviewed him and spent time. And what was the thing is every single week when things were going wrong, there would be a week like Tony Blair faces his toughest week in politics. And you look at him, he would go on a stage, he'd go on a long interview, he'd do a PMQs or a statement, and he would win everyone over because he was very clever, very sharp on his feet, thought on his feet. The thing is, Keir Starmer is very, very humdrum compared to him. He doesn't think on his feet, does he? He takes the lawyer aspect, and he hasn't got the charm or the charisma or the gift of the gab.
No, he definitely hasn't. And actually, to be honest with you, Julia, I would hate to be one of the poor souls that was stuck with him as my barrister, because he cannot make a case to save his life. Quite literally, he's losing his career and he's unable to actually talk himself out of it, which was his job, which he was paid handsomely for too.
Well, I know, but he's got a pension, and a whole act of Parliament to give him his super-duper pension as Director of Public Prosecutions. He said in January 2020, we were playing the clip a bit earlier, he said, you know, I never turn on my staff. He said he picked up awards on their behalf, and when I made mistakes, I carried the can. I never turn on my staff, and you should never turn on your staff. But the decision for Morgan McSweeney to go was surely, at least in part, the Prime Minister's decision.
Oh, absolutely. Ultimately, the decisions that are made fall on the executive. You know, Lord Attlee, the leader during the war, he actually said, Julia, that a weak minister is the one that allows the civil service to decide, and a strong minister is the one that actually takes the decisions himself. Well, this is a weak man who's been led by those who are making daft decisions, and he ultimately has to be the one that accepts responsibility for those decisions. Do you think he'd be saying that about Nigel Farage, Julia,
exactly.
letting him off like that?
Is it a resigning matter? I mean, basically, Morgan McSweeney saying it was the wrong decision, and I'm the one who advised him to do this. He's basically saying it is a resigning matter. I mean, the Director of Communications, Tim Allen, is not resigning directly in relation to this, as far as we're aware. But if Morgan McSweeney says it was the wrong decision and it's a resigning matter by resigning, isn't he actually, rather than saving the Prime Minister, isn't actually he making him more weak?
Well, there's a litany of failures here, aren't there now? It's not just the decision to appoint Lord Mandelson as US ambassador. It's actually a slew of decisions on everything from, as you mentioned earlier, the links to the Lord Doyle, you know, and the support of candidates like that. They put forward people who, in any other political party, Julia, they would be screaming bloody murder about the complete lack of standards and ethics within the person that put them forward. So where are those standards and ethics evident within this Labour Party? That's what I want to know.
That's always the issue, isn't it, for politicians who say, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to bring integrity, you know, the grown-ups are back in the room and all that. It's when they get hoisted by their own petard. It's usually over the fact that they've claimed one thing and then done something else. And we saw the Tories do that many times. Let's talk about your party, the Reform Party, and people are saying, no, we need more scrutiny of, you know, Nigel Farage's links with Russians. There were all those allegations. Of course, you remember you ended up in court cases and dealing with the Electoral Commission over allegations about, what was going on with his claims about the Russians trying to, fix the Brexit vote and all that. But there have been allegations about some, questionable links that your party leader, Nigel Farage, has had with people who perhaps are not, should we say, good for Britain's national security. Do we need to look more into that, given that he is, according to the polls, likely to be the next elected Prime Minister?
Oh, look, I think that's complete utter nonsense. Ultimately, he has been as robust as he can be on supporting Ukraine, for example, as you have on this show, Julia. I don't think he'd be doing that if he was a paid-up putsch of Putin. You know, it is an absurdity. I think actually it's a distraction that's often used to try and tar the Reform UK. But the evidence simply does not bear out that this is a party that is against Russia's or in favour of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, for example. And actually, the warnings that have been made in the past, well, Nigel Farage was right to warn that actually the West was giving President Putin the sort of excuse to go into Ukraine. It should never have been allowed to happen. We should have been more robust on it. And quite frankly, the West has been weak and found wanton.
OK, well, I don't think we were giving him any excuse. I disagree on that front. Let's talk about Reform setting out their, assuming it's still going ahead today, setting out their plans for a shadow cabinet. He set out a timeline for appointing Reform UK's shadow cabinet to basically, he says, to get the party in shape for an election. He says it could be by the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, we don't know how long that this weak and fragile. We've been talking about it all morning. You've been talking about it all morning. And actually, we don't know how long it's going to hobble on for. The facts are presented to us that in recent history, the Conservatives, once you had these similar styles of resignations, of sackings and all the rest of it, the turmoil around Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson wasn't able to hobble on much longer, Julia. I don't believe that Keir Starmer will be able to, whether or not it's this year, whether or not it's next. We have to get our ducks in a row. We owe it to the country, we owe it to our voters to make sure that we are ready and raring to go on day one.
Well, this is one of the concerns a lot of people have who are very supportive of what your party stands for, which is the ability to deliver. And there's a lot of talk about emulating Donald Trump's second term in office, not his first term in office, and being ready to go. But given that we had Keir Starmer and his party, we may not agree with a lot of what they had to say or rate him as a person, but at the end of the day, we're looking at somebody leading a party that's been in office many times before, had a load of people who 4 years to prepare for an election victory. Certainly in the last couple of years before the 2024 election, it was looking very likely that Labour would win. And they are still unbelievably, I don't think this is a party political matter, incompetent, useless, with no good ideas. I mean, and most of the things they've announced that got them in trouble have just been off-the-cuff things that have come out of the blue, not in a manifesto or anything. So what hopes could people have that your party are doing any more prep?
Well, because we are actually in open conversation talking about getting around through the policy working groups that we've established, led by Zia Youssef, a team of people who do want to come forward. They might be people, I've had conversations, Julia, with people who have been Labour supporters in the past, but they're coming forward to actually advise the party, to offer suggestions, because they recognise that Reform stands a really good chance of forming the next government, that we must form the next government in order to save us from the mess that we find ourselves in right now. So we are getting the right people around that table to having those discussions with us about those different policy areas. And what we'll hear today will set the tone and the direction for leading up to that general election whenever it might come. We've got to be ready. We will be ready. And the record sums of investment that are coming into the party show donor intent and strength of purpose within our party to deliver the best possible prospectus for the country.
Well, let me tell you, the Prime Minister, he still is the Prime Minister, he's addressed staff at number 10 after the resignation of his Director of Communications, Tim Allen, and his Chief of Staff resigning yesterday. It's Morgan McSweeney. And he said, we go forward from here. We must prove that politics can be a force for good. I believe it can. I believe it is. We go with confidence as we continue changing the country. He is very much being put forward that, he says, politics can be for the public good. They've got a lot more work to do and he ain't going anywhere.
Well, it's just a total nonsense. I mean, the idea, if that's strong, remember Theresa May saying she was strong and stable in the national interest? She was about as strong and stable as a three-legged chair. And I'm afraid that this is the way in which that Keir Starmer's administration is going to, on everything from the cancellation of local elections, the mass migration that's coming through. You mentioned earlier record numbers from this government.
I wanted to just mention that, actually.
Julia.
More small boat migrants have come to Britain under Keir Starmer than any other Prime Minister. Of course, this all really went crazy just a few years ago. Some 65,703 migrants have reached Britain across the Channel just since Labour won the election 19 months ago. That's an average of just over 790 a week. And even, the depths of winter in February, 3 boats carrying dozens of migrants across the Channel on Sunday, and more were expected today. This pushes the total number since Keir Starmer took office in July 2024 past Boris Johnson, who had 65,800. It's mind-blowing. Those gangs are not smashed. So this is where we come back to. It's not just about Lord Manchester. If Keir Starmer was ahead in the polls, getting policies done, smash the gangs, delivering on the things that he said he would deliver on, the economy was going like a bazooka, steely focus on growth. If all of that was fine, no one would be expecting him to fall on his sword over Mandelson, would they?
No, I think you're right. I think ultimately if the other levers of government were being pulled in the right direction, that people would probably overlook it and feel richer in their pockets. Well, actually, we don't. We feel much poorer. Energy bills are sky high, some of the highest in the Western world, if not the world, Julia. And it took Boris Johnson twice as long to actually hit those numbers as far as illegal migration is concerned. And Starmer's great idea was to say, well, I'm going to go on bended knee to President Xi. Oh, I'm a poet and I didn't know it, Julia, and actually ask him to stop the sale, to ban the sale of these inflatable dinghies to the to those in mainland Europe.
The engines.
Exactly, yeah. And he's turned the English Channel into a taxpayer-funded Uber service, and he's saying that this is going to stop the boats. They have no intention of stopping the boats. He is a lawyer. He knows the legalities of actually being able to do it. He has no intention of doing it whatsoever. He is ideologically opposed to doing so.
Just finally, talk about ideologically opposed, very briefly, the Labour Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has said his ultimate goal is to reverse Brexit. He believes it's going to happen in his lifetime. Will it?
I think actually while Londoners are being stabbed on the streets and fleeced by the likes of you, Les, and all the rest of it, if he's busy daydreaming about Brexit and calling the single market the ultimate goal for him, well, he might be willing to ignore the biggest democratic mandate in British history. But I'm telling you now, I think come that election, when he's up for office to stand again, that he'll find that the Reform UK party actually does incredibly well in London for the first time.
Well, Darren Grimes, he's Reform UK councillor. Thank you so much for joining us. 11:48 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking about Jimmy Lai, jailed for 20 years by the Chinese for doing what? Standing up for democracy. Well, it does look like Keir Starmer had a very successful trip to see Xi Jinping in Beijing, didn't he? We'll talk about that with the former Conservative Security Minister, Tom Tugendhat, up next. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. 11:50 is the time. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Now let's talk about Jimmy Lai. We spoke to his son on the show about a week ago, Sebastian, this as he faced, getting an incredibly lengthy service behind bars, sentence behind bars in Hong Kong for being a pro-democracy activist in Hong Kong. He's a millionaire businessman, very, very, very popular figure in Hong Kong, and he's been behind bars on and off for quite a few years now. But he is a British passport holder, and overnight he has been sentenced to 20 years behind bars over the national security laws for Hong Kong. That means that realistically, at the age of 78, he will die behind bars. Well, let's talk about this with Tom Tugendhat, Conservative MP, also former Security Minister. Very good morning to you, Tom.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thank you for joining us. It is extraordinary that the Prime Minister went to China recently. You and I talked extensively about this. Handed over you can have your Chinese big spy embassy next to Tower, to Tower Bridge. You can do that, and I'm going to pay lip service to human rights and all of that and spying. But there was a lot of hope that he might get a deal with Jimmy Lai to get his freedom, given that he is a British passport holder, and his only crime is that he has been a peaceful protester for democracy. But it turns out that the Prime Minister really flew back from Beijing with absolutely nothing.
Well, the extraordinary thing is the Prime Minister's biggest moment of leverage, his greatest point of strength, was before he got on the plane.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't have to get on the plane. He didn't get anything else out of this trip. He got £11 billion of investment for AstraZeneca. Oh, no, hang on. That was AstraZeneca investing in China. Sorry, wrong way around.
Yeah.
He got 30-day visa-free trial. Oh, no, hang on again. That was in order to get Chinese businesses developing. Look, again and again and again, he got stuff for China, but he didn't get anything for Jimmy Lai, and he didn't get anything for Britain. Now, my view is that the point of pressure that the Prime Minister had was before he got on the plane. Before he got on the plane, the Prime Minister could have demanded the release of Jimmy Lai. He could have said he wouldn't get on the plane without the release of Jimmy Lai. He could have made an agreement.
But they wouldn't have cared. I mean, look, they didn't even bother, like, providing a proper, tour of the Forbidden Palace, for goodness sake. They couldn't have cared less whether the Prime Minister turned up or not.
But then why give them the benefit of the visit?
Well, exactly. A question we have asked ourselves, have we not? But
you and me both.
But we had this extraordinary situation over a few weeks ago where we had the Prime Minister and apparently the entire Foreign Office campaigning to get this El Fattah guy, a British Egyptian national. No one can understand why he was ever given British nationality, who was, basically, wants everyone in Britain to die and is trying to get him out of an Egyptian jail, even though he's clearly an extremist who's anti-Semitic and a danger to this country. And the Foreign Office considered it a top priority, but not a top priority to get a British national out of prison in Hong Kong who's done nothing but campaign for democracy.
Well, Jimmy Lai's crime, as you know, Julia, was doing exactly what you're doing now. It's the crime of journalism, of telling the truth, of asking politicians difficult questions and watching them squirm if they can't answer it. I'm afraid that's essential to democracy. It's not an add-on, it's not an extra, it's absolutely fundamental. And if that's a crime, then you simply do not have a free society. And all of this puts a complete lie to the Sino-British Joint Declaration, which is supposed to apply for 50 years in Hong Kong. OK, it's lasted 30 years. That's not true. It has been in place for 30 years. It lasted about 10 or 15. And the reality is that what we're now seeing is the full rollout of the Chinese Communist state over Hong Kong. And it is no longer a separate jurisdiction. Yeah. Now, what we should be doing is standing up for British citizens around the world, wherever they are. And Jimmy Lai has committed no crime and is yet a 78-year-old man in prison for no offence, being denied very, very basic rights, including access to his religious beliefs, to Mass.
Indeed. I mean, look, we've got form on this. The Prince of Wales is going to be sent to Saudi Arabia tonight on a 3-day visit to go, have a little bit of a love-in with the Crown Prince there, who, as we know, was behind the torture, murder and dismembering of Khashoggi, again, a then US-based journalist who was being critical of him. We're not really bothered who we cozy up to, in which case, in the context of where we are with Jeffrey Epstein files and Mandelson, bringing it to the resignation of Morgan McSweeney yesterday, and now the Director of Communications today, many talking about Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor, having to fall on his sword as well. Who knows what's going to happen in the next few days, even the Prime Minister going, it would appear. But it does appear that, Britain cozies up with some very unpleasant people and some very unpleasant regimes. Is it any wonder that they weren't that bothered about someone being mates with someone who'd solicited prostitution from a 40-year-old girl?
Well, I have to say, let me just be quite clear. The Mandelson affair is utterly horrific, and it's horrific on so many levels, not just the abuse of young girls, which is horrific enough, but frankly, what we've seen from the evidence that's emerged, from the papers that emerged, really begins to raise questions about treason charges, because the level of leakage, the level of undermining of Britain's interest, effectively making things more expensive for the British people by leaking financial information, all that sort of stuff. If it's proved, if it's true, and, forgive me, but we've only seen PDF documents online, so forgive me for not being 100% confident, it's really serious. It's the most serious betrayal of the British people that I've seen in years. But the idea that this is somehow a betrayal of Keir Starmer is frankly bizarre. Not all of this, but a lot of this was already public before he was appointed. Indeed. That's why Tony Blair had sacked him twice. I mean, it's pretty bad that Gordon Brown rehired him in a moment of desperation. But the reality is that Keir Starmer cannot claim that he didn't know.
Indeed. And his links, but well-publicised links, saying on Deripaska's, Russian tycoon, closely linked to Putin, is not, and the Chinese. I mean,
exactly.
There's no question. I'm sure we might have discussed it at the time. But it's not just allegations. And again, he's denied any wrongdoing against Peter Mandelson. The police have been investigating. We've seen police at his home in Wiltshire and in London. But also Andrew, the former prince, now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, allegations containing these documents. And I like you, assuming these files are accurate. We don't know that, and people are entitled to be innocent until proven guilty. But if these documents are true, it would appear the allegation is that Andrew also, within minutes of getting any documents, when he was a UK trade envoy, paid good money by the taxpayer to go and represent our country, that he was, it would appear, allegedly handing information to Jeffrey Epstein as well. We are, again, I've been saying I think this is traitorous, treasonous behaviour. It's not just misconduct in public office. This was Andrew's. He was acting on behalf of his own mother's government.
The extraordinary, I mean, look, both of them, and what I'm terrified about is there may be more, right? I mean, both of them have behaved in ways that are, I mean, again, if it's proved, forgive me for doing all the usual caveats
quite
on this,
right.
but if it's proved, then both of them have frankly betrayed the British people and betrayed the British government and betrayed the Crown, because it's absolutely horrific to be so lackadaisical with the security of the state, with the interests of the British people, that you're willing to share it with somebody who very clearly has links to the Russian administration in some way. Now, again, let's see what's proved. But it's quite clear that Epstein had links to the Russian administration in some way. It's quite clear that he had links to other governments as well in some way. What is he doing? Is he an agent? Is he a broker? Is he a trader? It doesn't really matter. You shouldn't be sharing information that should be kept secret. And clearly these two, if what is in the documents is proved, that's exactly what they were doing.
Yes or no? Does the Prime Minister have to go? If it was the wrong decision, as Morgan McSweeney said, and he's the one who advised the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister did know, as he admitted at PMQs last week, that Epstein and Mandelson were still mates after Epstein's conviction, should the Prime Minister go?
Yes, I think it's completely, I use the term accurately, it is completely incredible. It is simply not believable that Jonathan Powell and Morgan McSweeney and Tim Allen all advised him one thing and he was simply forced into it. Well, in that case he's not the Prime Minister anyway, so he shouldn't be there.
Very, very good point. He's either making the decisions or he's not. Tom Tugendhat, Conservative MP, former Security Minister, thank you very much indeed. He's going to get Benedict Spence's thoughts on what he had to say, in particular in relation to Jimmy Lai, and of course keeping you up to date. Not only did we lose Morgan McSweeney yesterday, we have now lost the Director of Communications for the Prime Minister. I'm not sure that's any great loss given the state of their communications these days. That's not in relation, though, to links with Mandelson or Epstein or anything like that. But does the Prime Minister survive the year, the month, the week, the day? I'd love to hear your thoughts. So 344 499 1000 is the number to call. Talk to a Labour peer about that up next. This is Talk.
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good afternoon to you. This is Talk the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device. Hold on to your hats, folks. Goodness knows what is going to happen today, this hour, this week. Oh, who knows? Are we going to keep the Prime Minister? Well, many of us will be hoping not, but be careful what you wish for, folks. But yesterday we lost Morgan McSweeney. He is the Chief of Staff, or was, to the Prime Minister. He resigned, saying the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson as the ambassador to the US, despite knowing his close links ongoing with Epstein after he was convicted of paedophile offences, was the wrong decision. So he's gone because he's the one who advised it. But what about Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor, who would also have advised it? If he advised against it, you'd think we'd have heard about that by now, would you not? The Prime Minister, though, it says he's going nowhere. He's spoken to Downing Street staff after he's lost another member of his team, the Director of Communications, Tim Allen, brought in. He was one of those key people with Alistair Campbell and Peter Mandelson. That name just keeps on coming up, doesn't it? He was part of the gang that basically got Labour into power in '97 when Tony Blair was leader. But he's been brought back in last year as his Director of Communications. He says he is stepping down so a new team can be built. Yeah. Well, what are our hopes for the country with that new team, given the state of the last one? If they were the A team, good God, what's the B team going to be like? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call. Do you think the Prime Minister can survive the Mandelson scandal? What happens next? He's going to be talking to the Labour Party MPs tonight at 6 o'clock. Does he even survive that long? Studious quiet from cabinet ministers today in terms of offering their support, and indeed over the weekend. In fact, other than one of his closest allies, Pat McFadden, who didn't do a very good job because he appeared to be out of the loop on the Morgan McSweeney situation yesterday, we've had absolutely nothing. Oh, apart from David Lammy, Deputy Prime Minister to Keir Starmer, who thought it would be helpful for his people to put out the fact that, oh no, he'd advised against the appointment of Mandelson as US ambassador. Well, the plot is sickening. The vultures are circling. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222 to message us. You can send us a message on X at talkTV as well. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Benedict Spence is still with me. He's Conservative commentator. I mean, it is absolutely fascinating that we've already had a second resignation. Not, I suppose, directly related. It's not like I did the wrong thing, but the idea that the Director of Communications, someone like Tim Allen, who has been extremely successful multimillionaire lobbyist, the idea that he wouldn't have been involved in that decision when it was in the newspapers, people discussing whether it was a good idea to appoint Mandelson in 2024, December 24, as the ambassador to the US. I mean, he wasn't involved in that. He wasn't in government then, so he's not directly involved in that mess up. But do these resignations, even if the National Security Advisor goes, Jonathan Powell, do they in any way help the Prime Minister, or are they actually harming him?
They harm him, and this is, whatever way you look at it, either because you think you need to change the direction of your media strategy, or because he's simply going, that's it, I've had enough, I'm out. Ultimately, you're simply creating fewer and fewer people around the Prime Minister. What you're sort of admitting is that the team is getting weaker, either because they're leaving of their own volition or because you're forcing them out. It's this idea that you can buy yourself time and that maybe God will throw you a Hail Mary that means magically you become popular again. I can't imagine what that would be for Keir Starmer. I don't know, a war? Like, what actually happens where people turn around and go, OK, we need to stick by the guy?
Pandemic. Lockdown would be good. Very popular lockdowns. It was genuinely alarmingly popular. This actually ties into the conversation we just had a few moments ago with Tom Tugan had about Jimmy Lai. Not a household name in Britain, of course he's not, but he's been sentenced to 20 years behind bars for being a pro-democracy activist in Hong Kong. Despite he's a British citizen, we're told that the Prime Minister raised his case with Xi Jinping when he went to China. But again, this is part of the whole thing, isn't it? It's like, so he's failing on, the latest figures on the boats, on the illegal migrants. The economy is floundering. There's constant U-turns. He's got no say over anything. His backbenchers won't let him do anything at all, like reform welfare or anything like that. And he's clearly got no sway on the public stage, because because just a week after he gets back from China, Xi Jinping happily has this, because that's why he would have directed this sentence. It's not a proper justice system under the Chinese, to basically lock up a British citizen for 20 years for doing nothing wrong.
Oh, which is a sign that Britain's influence on the world stage is much diminished, but also that we're not even trying to rebuild it is the thing.
No.
You know, you would have thought the way to do this would be to say to the Chinese, OK, we will give you your embassy and we will then have the state visit and vice versa, but as a condition of that, you will give us this one man and he will go back to the UK and he'll have a private life there, he will never come back and bother you again, but you will be giving him over to us, because actually that is still small fry to the Chinese government. That doesn't cost them anything.
He'd already been in prison.
But we didn't even do that because we think, and I know we keep on saying it, it's a joke, we think the thing to do is to kowtow to them so that they will be nice to us. That is not how it works.
They
That's
just
not
see
how they
you as
respond.
weak, because
Exactly.
that's what you are.
Exactly.
OK, really interesting. Benedict, thank you very much. More from you coming up. Going to get your calls as well, 0344 499 1000. First up, though, delighted to welcome to the show Labour peer Lord Soley. Clive Soley, of course, you remember, many years on the Labour benches. A very, very good afternoon to you, Lord Soley.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. So, after two resignations, one very much directly implicated in the appointment of Mandelson to the ambassadorship to Washington, do you think that the Prime Minister is now basically stronger right now after those two resignations, or is he weaker?
No, I don't think it's either, actually. I think we're still going through a bit of a crisis on this, and that won't surprise anyone. Hopefully we'll be out of it soon. And my own view is, A, I hope Keir Starmer stays, and I've got reasons for saying that. And B, I think he will, because, the Tory party does change leaders almost with their morning coffee.
This is true.
The Labour Party...
but changing it hasn't worked out very well for them. But then neither would keeping on a Prime Minister
hang
or
on
leader.
a minute. I was just going to say the Labour Party, for a variety of reasons, is less likely to change its leaders. So all I'm saying to you as a journalist is... calm this down a bit. It is going to go on for a bit. It isn't quick, and I don't think he will go, and I hope he doesn't. And if you like, I'll give you the reasons why I hope he doesn't.
Well, look, there's no doubt at all. It is much harder to oust a serving Prime Minister who is a Labour leader than it is a Tory, where you just need sort of,
and there are good reasons for
MPs.
There are good reasons for that.
And there are good reasons for that. But what do you make of Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader? She has said since the resignation of Tim Allen as well, this is yet another sign that Keir Starmer has lost control of his government. He is in office, but not in power. He's completely at the mercy of Labour MPs, she says, who've, let's be frank, have not been voting his way since the U-turn on the two-child benefit cap. He has no control. None of that's untrue, is it?
Let me surprise you a bit and say I've got quite a bit of time for Kemi Badenoch. I think she's doing a good job for the Conservative Party. And frankly, as a Democrat, I want the Conservative Party to recover a bit. So that's not bad. And clearly she's got to say what you've just quoted. If she wouldn't be leader of the opposition if she didn't take a view that you're paid to oppose. And that's what she's got to do. So, and she's doing it quite well, actually. So there are worse things. I don't think she's right. I don't think she's right, actually, on the assessment of it. I think the issue is actually far more complex, and that's what makes this difficult. But I'd say perhaps more important to get on to the reasons as to why Keir Starmer should stay.
OK, tell us.
There are two reasons in my mind which are both very strong. Yes, this is a crisis. Yes, it shouldn't happen. Yes, he was wrong to appoint Peter Mandelson, who I know reasonably well, actually, and I've talked to him on many occasions. I have a view about him, which I will give you if you like. It's straightforward. But the reason why I think that we need to get through this crisis and get back onto the problems are severe, that they're not unmanageable. They are being managed, actually. If you look at the small print on the various economic reports that come out about the state of the British economy, it is not doing badly, but it is slow. So people are not going to feel the effects quickly. That will take time. Secondly, I do think Keir Starmer, if anybody, is the person to try and reform the system which needs reforming in the way that Gordon Brown said the other day. The system for appointments. So I was going to go on
he's blamed his chief of staff, and now and over the weekend, of course, he's blaming the vetting system. Do we seriously think that MI6, MI5, and it was police, whoever else was involved in the vetting, they didn't give him the full information?
Well, I don't know. What I do know is that one thing Gordon Brown said, and which I've been saying for a while too, is that when you make a senior appointment like this, we ought to put it before a parliamentary committee for approval of that person. Because the problem about Peter Mandelson, in a way you pushed me into saying what the problem, he is actually a very able guy. He did a good job as a minister. He was a good European commissioner. He's got two enormous problems. The first one is lack of insight, because if you or I were as unpopular as he was, and he knew that, you'd do something about it. He didn't. But the more important one, the one that causes me most problem, and why I wouldn't have appointed me, is that he doesn't have what I call a flashing red light, which when you're tempted to do something wrong, or somebody asks you, and we don't know which way round it was, asked you to do something wrong, you should immediately, particularly in politics, but also in business and in the media and all the other areas, you ought to have a flashing red light which says don't do.
I disagree with you. I think that no. You're saying when he wants to do these things, he shouldn't do them. No, I think what he should have is morality and a conscience, and not put.
Well, yes.
No, but that's not the same thing. No, not doing it because it might look bad is different from not doing it because it's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, but that's what the red light is. The red light is I won't do this because it is wrong. That's what I'm saying to you. I've had a lot of dealings over the years with people with extreme, what we used to call psychopathic type problems. We don't use that term anymore. It's quite difficult to define. Maybe we should. But one of the things I'd say to you, and I said on this program before, if you look, the three groups who are most at risk in things like this are politicians, senior business people, and people in the media generally. Why? Because you're already in the media. And I remember so clearly, and you will remember this, Julia, Jimmy Savile. I took one look at him on television. I said, do not let any girl go near me. But in fact, half the media people were saying, isn't he wonderful? Isn't he? And that's the problem in a sense. People like Epstein are incredibly manipulative. And if you look to those exchanges between him and Peter Mandelson and between Sarah Ferguson and him, you notice this, he's almost flirting with them. He's sort of drawing them in.
But they were all,
and most of us would say, no, don't
these
go
are
there.
all people, whether
Peter
it's
Mandelson
Andrew, whether it's Mandelson, whether it's Fergie, whether it's Epstein, they're all transactional people. They only have relationships with people for what they can get out of them because they have no morality. None of the, whether they've convicted a crime or not,
I don't think you say none of them have any morality. I mean,
no, I absolutely am saying I do not believe that, I genuinely, I do not believe that any of these people have any sense of morality. I really don't. Not like
when you say any of these people, what people do you mean?
I'm Ferguson, Andrew, Mandelson, Epstein. I don't think they have a sense of morality. I don't think they have any notion of right and wrong.
Who said good things about Jimmy Savile have no morality? What did you say about
No, I'm not.
I mean, it matters.
Jimmy Savile, I was one of those kids writing to Jim or Fix It when he was a big name, so I'm not sure I count in that category. Listen, now let's go. You said, you talked about.
I never wrote to him.
You said, you said you talk about why the Prime Minister should stay because the economic problems he can get over that and he can reform the system. The thing is, when Morgan McSweeney resigns, he's basically saying this is a resigning matter, and I'm what he gave it, but that he said the decision was wrong. Well, if the decision was wrong, the person who made the decision was the Prime Minister. Let me play you a little clip of something Keir Starmer said back in January 2020 when he was running for the Labour leadership. And he was talking about when he was head of the Crown Prosecution Service. And here's what he said about how he dealt with his staff.
Hear me out. I had 8,000 staff for 5 years as the Director of Public Prosecutions. And I acted, I hope, in the right way with them, which is when they had victories, I celebrated on their behalf. I picked up awards on their behalves. And when they made mistakes, I carried the can. I never turn on my staff, and you should never turn on your staff.
Never turn on your staff, and yet the man who advised him to make what he says was a wrong decision has resigned, Morgan McSweeney.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? That's a bit hypocritical, isn't it, Lord Solly?
Morgan McSweeney would probably have made his own decision on this too. But I have no doubt that you can quite properly criticise Keir Starmer for his handling of this. I don't dispute that, nor do most people. What the point is, in the sense, he recognises what he's got wrong, and he is the sort of person who puts this right by changing the system. And we have got into a situation in this country, I hate to say this in a way, but we have, in the last, I would say, 2 decades, actually, got in a position where we've not improved our system enough to stop things like this happening.
A processology issue. This is it. This doesn't matter what the system is. Hey, shall we appoint a bloke who we know for a fact is still mates with and stays in the house of a convicted paedophile to be our most trusted and most senior diplomat on the world stage? The answer to that question, whatever the system is, no.
Julia, do you think he'd have been appointed if we'd have had the assessments beforehand, before we appoint these people, rather than leaving it?
That information was there. The Prime Minister admitted at PMQs.
We're saying it's wrong.
The Prime Minister admitted at PMQs last week that he had the information that made the decision. You didn't need to. No, you didn't need to have a long process of approving him. The information, the 2 facts we knew about him meant that he was already not someone who should be on that list.
Right. And this was the big mistake that Starmer made. That's right. Nobody is saying anything
changing the vetting system makes bugger all difference to that.
Could you stop talking for a moment so that I just finish what I'm saying? Just please don't interrupt me for 2 minutes. Yes, he has made a big mistake, right? I also think, and this is what I'm saying to you, that you're not here, he is the person to put it right.
No,
right?
I'm sorry, having that vetting system wouldn't have put this right.
It would have stopped it happening.
So what he's saying is, I need to be stopped by other people from making terrible decisions.
No,
That's what you're
as
saying.
A Prime Minister. No, it's not, Julia. You're getting the Prime Minister's got many jobs, and one of the things I was going to go on to say, one of the reasons why I don't want him to go, is the world is in a very dangerous place, and one of the things that most people agree on is Keir Starmer's doing a very good job on foreign policy. That matters. Yes,
what about China? Why is Jimmy Lai being sentenced to 20 years behind bars?
He was bound to be, and you've been.
Why was he bound to be? Why was he bound to be?
Because that's the way the Chinese. It's a
dictatorship. That's the way the Chinese is. So what was Keir Starmer doing over there, kowtowing to them?
Because you have to talk to them, whether you like it or not.
You don't have to go and shake their hands and pretend that they're not a murderous, tyrannical regime.
No, what you do is you raise the issues with them, which we're concerned about. We always knew when I had talked to the people when we were handing Hong Kong over, and the big worry we had was they kept saying to us, because we were arguing for the rule of law, they kept saying to us, what happens if the court gets it wrong? And what will happen in a case like this, and I don't think you should assume that we won't get Jimmy Lai back over here, actually. Don't rely on it. Wait and see. Because I am sure that would have been a major matter that was raised and will continue to be raised.
One could hope so.
And that's important.
OK, but here's the thing. You said he's been very successful. You clearly think that the Prime Minister is the best person to remain in the job. Is that because the alternatives, whether it's Wes Streeting, Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, Andy Burnham, David Lammy, is it because they are just utterly useless, or is it because you think Keir Starmer is so good?
No, they could do it. And I mean, if Keir Starmer did go for whatever reason, there would be an election within the Labour Party usual way. The trouble is, it takes several months, and there are several people who could do the job quite well. I have no problem about that. The issue is whether you want to go through the sort of things we went through with the Conservative government when they changed leaders with their coffee. It's not a good idea if you can avoid it. If Keir Starmer was totally hopeless, some of your people listening to you will say he is. I am saying he's not. He's actually
What evidence do you have that he's not hopeless?
But because I do think in a way, the problem with Keir Starmer is he's more a backroom operator than he is. He's not a Tony Blair or a Margaret Thatcher, who's very good on the media and comes over very strongly and says, I'm doing this. He's not that, and he never will be. He's more like...
But hold on a minute. But a lot of people would have said that, you know what, actually, he's not that guy. He's not Mr. Charisma. But after the chaos of the last few years, I think a lot of voters in 2024 went, we'll take a little bit of quiet, managerial, boring man because they'll give us all a break. The trouble is, he's not good at that either.
Well, I actually don't think that's right.
Give me one example.
Right.
Give me one example what he's done that's been good.
There's a whole range of things.
Give me one.
So foreign policy for a start.
Where? Which foreign policy?
Because the foreign
giving away
the
Chagos Islands.
No, which Trump and everyone else agrees with now.
I don't care whether they do.
No, but they looked at the small print and realised
we're giving away our own territory and then paying for privilege. That's not a success. Name the next one.
It's not. No,
name the next one.
No, we're not giving away our own territory. We're doing a deal with the country that.
No, we are giving away our own territory. Clive, we are. It's British territory. It won't be a British territory.
That's making it up, Julia.
It's a British territory.
No, it's not. Fantasy. Look it up and they'll tell you.
What's the next success you're claiming?
The reset.
Tell me another claim you're saying.
I am telling you.
What?
The reset with Europe is very, very important.
Reset with Europe. We're aligning with all of EU rules, leaving all the benefits of Brexit.
We're actually setting up policies on the Ukraine and with other, and we will get, and we are moving toward it, thank heavens, a recognition that Europe has got to have a more serious defence policy and foreign policy.
You're not in charge of what they do.
Oh, but we're working. Julia, you work with them.
Clive,
you work with them.
We were working with them anyway. We were working with them anyway. Boris Johnson was leading the way on Ukraine. When the Germans were sending blankets, we were sending weapons. Boris Johnson led the way on Ukraine.
Boris Johnson didn't know the difference between fact and fiction, and that was his problem.
I have lots of issue with Boris Johnson. On Ukraine, he was absolutely solid. Tell me a success at home. Tell me one of these other amazing things that our competent Prime Minister has done at home.
Yes, I would say that he is changing the economic and political system of this country.
How? What is doing? In what way?
Well, just because you don't look at it closely doesn't mean it's not happening.
Sorry, I hate to tell you, I do look at it closely. I spend a lot of time looking.
You even think that Chagos Island was a bad deal when everybody else is saying it's a good deal. Why have you got wrong? Why have you got that wrong?
I don't know who the everybody else is that you're talking to, but it ain't anyone I've met.
Everybody deals with
you're telling me that this Prime Minister is the man who is changing the economic policy of this country. Inflation is still too high. Food inflation.
They're
going to build a load of houses. They're way behind already. In 19 months, they're way behind on schedule. It's higher than it was when Labour took over.
No, it's coming down.
It's higher than it was when Labour took over.
Do you remember what it was under Liz Truss? Do you remember what it was under Liz Truss?
It's higher than it was when Labour took over.
Do you remember what
unemployment going up? Unemployment going up.
I'll give you that one.
The largest number of illegal migrants arriving on boats.
No, we haven't.
NHS waiting list barely touched.
How many arrived in the last years of the Labour Tory government? I will tell you there was nearly 1 million in 1 year.
I'm not talking about illegal migrants. I'm talking about illegal migrants.
It was.
No, they're not illegal migrants. They're legal migrants.
Well, no, it was legal and illegal.
No, but they're completely different groups. People who've got a visa are not the same.
Julia, will you stop making it up?
No, you can't. I'm talking about illegal boat migrants, and you're talking about people who've been given a visa. I can't name a single success of this government.
Let me give you something else. When you said a few moments ago about the policy on benefits, that is a very important change, and it is quite right that gear back down on that, and there was a change on it. That's right. But now move on from there. Recognise that the person who was on television the other day, Pat McFadden, has already got the report set up and reported already, done by a senior businessman, on how we get those people who are on benefits into work. And that, you ought to look at that. It's by the former head of, I think it was John Lewis, or one of the big, and that's the sort of thing you need to be recognising. Of course,
that would be amazing.
In your job,
Clive, that would be incredible.
You're not going to say the detail.
I hate to tell you, but the OBR, in terms of their predictions of the last budget, were not predicting not predicting any fall in the number of people who are going to be on benefits.
You will not get it exactly right all the time. But if you look at the... this is very interesting. I occasionally read the Times, right? And they often have the bad new economic stories on front page. Look at the business pages, and you find the reports saying that the British economy is improving. And
but yeah, I hate to tell you, you talk to small business people. I'm going to have to go to a break, but Clive, I'm going to give you credit, Lord Soley, for. I mean, we've had two peers now on absolutely, really supporting the Prime Minister. They're doing more than the Cabinet is doing right now. But I'm struggling. But there we are, Labour peer, Lord Soley. So appreciate you joining us. Benedict Spence listening to.
I'm amazed that Labour want to reform the House of Lords, because right now the only people who are doing a good job of going into bat for them are peers. But just listening to that, everybody listening to that, those are the people that are running this country. That is why the country is in this current state. They believe that. They genuinely believe this worldview.
There wasn't a single thing that he's saying that I think was a success.
I mean, the thing, when we say we're giving away sovereign territory to the Chagos Islands, and they turn around and go, no, we're not. It belongs to someone else. That's the sort of people that are running the country. They don't live in the real world. They live in a separate world. Sadly, they're the ones running the country, and we have to dance to their fantasy tune. Isn't it great? And we've got more of them to come as well.
We do have more of them to come. Just to let you know, breaking news while we were talking, King Charles has been heckled a second time now over Andrew's ties to Epstein. Look, he took way more action. I think he's known for years, and he's basically he was saying to his late mum, for the love of God, get Andrew out. He did, he boosted him out of Royal Lodge. He's only paying for him, he says, to contain him, apparently. But a man shouted to Charles in Clitheroe in Lancashire on a trip, how long have you known about Andrew? And there were loud boos from the rest of the crowd, some of whom wore Union Jack. I don't know whether they were booing the guy who shouted or booing Charles or indeed Andrew, who knows. But this is the thing, there's going to be more of this happening. 12:28 is the time. Love to get your phone calls up next. Haven't left much time, but we will get them in. Lots more to talk about. This is Talk, the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the show. 12:30 is the time. Just told you just before we went to the break that King Charles had been heckled on a trip to Clitheroe in Lancashire during a royal walkabout. Let's have a little watch and a listen to that.
Charles! How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? Have you been protecting Andrew from prosecution?
Now, it does sound like that the boos they're not of King Charles, they are of the man shouting out. I think Benedict Spence says there's going to be a lot more of that going on. Although, one of the people who's come up smelling of roses in this is King Charles. Absolutely no time for the brother. He's obviously couldn't wait to basically no HRH, no Prince. You're out of your fancy home. go and live quietly for the love of God in Norfolk and don't trouble anyone again.
Absolutely. I think that it's one of the things, you know...
I'm not even a monarchist.
Exactly. King Charles has come out of this as being sort of actually he's taken decisive action where his beloved mother, who everybody respected, frankly, a lot of people would be saying, did she in fact drop the ball? You know, many questions about
at the very least, her advisors, either she wasn't told or she was either told, in which case, wow, and if she wasn't told, that is a problem as well, because then again, your advisors, your principal private secretary should be telling you this stuff.
I think Charles has grasped the nettle, as he should have done, and actually I think most people would say, no, he took the right decision, and their respect for him is probably higher as a result of this.
Yeah, I mean, again, I say this as someone who's not
of course,
that. I mean, I think he's handled it again. But again, it is true, though, you know, what did you know when? Is he protected? Again, the Met Police last time round didn't think it was worth investigating or even bothering to question for even a nanosecond, just knock on the door of the palace when Virginia Frey's allegations were made. So I think that's pretty darn telling. Let's go. Actually, we're going to go to calls, but actually, Carl is in Liverpool. First of all, let's go to him on 0344 499 1000. Good afternoon to you, Carl.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Just want to bring you breaking news. Sir Keir Starmer, Downing Street, has issued a statement. Said Sir Keir Starmer is not resigning and will be concentrating on the job in hand. That sounds horribly like that he has full confidence in himself. He had full confidence in Madison before he left. He had full confidence in Morgan McSweeney, and he's now gone. Do you reckon Sir Keir Starmer is just kind of holding on and clinging with his fingernails now?
He is, yeah. From day one, though, Julia, his self and his party have been an absolute shock. They've gone back on so many different things. You know, we've just seen it over the time. He's not a leader. He's not a prime minister.
Hold on a minute. Were you not listening to Lord Soley? He was telling us what a success that the prime minister's been.
Well, they're all blind, aren't they, really? Because the majority of us see how it is. I can't believe he hasn't gone. I give him till the end of the week because the pressure's just going to ramp up. The more we hear from the Epstein files, and it's just going to get worse. And, you know, just talking about the King there being heckled, you know, Kate and William came out with it, you know, and said...
deeply concerned,
Yeah, I don't think he will come out again and say something because we don't know just how bad this is going to be for Andrew. In the long run, there's a lot more to come out. So if he comes out now and apologises, he's going to have to do it in maybe a week or so again. You know, we just don't know what's around the corner. But Keir Starmer needs to go. You know, the further this carries on, the worse it looks for him. He knew everything. There's no way that he didn't know about everything.
But what do you think about this whole, like, the vetting, we need to sort out that system, and people are going, that was the problem. The idea that the MI6 or whatever didn't give all the information, what a joke.
Yeah, of course. But, you know, we spoke earlier last week, Julie, about the Queen, and I said, you know, if I asked my mum for £10 million, she want to know who I was paying it to, and you know why. That goes the same with the security services. They know everything. It's just we're not stupid anymore, Julia. This is the thing. We've been treated like this for God knows how long, and God can only imagine what is to come out of all this. You know, this is just going to get worse.
I feel more heads are going to roll. Carl, great call. Thank you very much. Let's go to Alan, who's in Salford. Alan, does the Prime Minister last the day, the week, the month, the year?
No, not really. I thought he was going to say he was going to go today, but he hasn't. But what a farce this is. And all the time this country's dying. That's what's annoying me. You know, I'm 73 today. And
happy birthday!
Thank you. I didn't mean to say it for that. But, you know, the weather for the last couple of years in winter, we've had a really mild winter. But the trouble is, I opened the window this morning and I thought, oh, look, it's nice today. And I keep thinking, 200 or 300, 400 more parasites coming across on the boats.
Yeah.
This is what you've got to think. You know, it drives me mad.
I'm completely with you.
As for... The Lord, what was his name?
Lord Soley, we just had it, and Lord Fowkes earlier. I was going to
say Lord Rottenbottom then, but he said that Starmer is doing great on the international front.
Apparently.
He's been to China to talk about Jimmy Lyon. He's got 20 years. He's done a great job there, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. Alan, thank you very much indeed. We had a bit of a chuckle about that. Don't repeat it. 12:35 is the time. We're going to take a break. Then we are going to talk about, apparently, Olivia Colman, one of our most awarded and celebrated actresses, apparently thinks she's non-binary. And indeed, in terms of her relationship with her husband, she is a gay man to her husband. Should we just have a deep sigh again? We're going to talk about this with Helen Joyce. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. So we'll return to a conversation about, well, all things Mandelson and indeed the heckling of the King over Andrew. What did he know? Booing of the heckler as the King's out on a trip to Lancashire. Also going to be talking about student loans. Massive big issue. Really coming up through the ranks of the political issues and the crisis in terms of young people and getting older people facing tens and tens and tens of thousands of pounds in debt, paying a fortune in interest and never ever running that debt down. We're going to talk about that as well. First up though, let's talk about really, really important things. Yes, those actory people who do insist on pontificating on their usual nonsense, whether it's American, I'm talking about ICE agents or talking about Gaza or whatever it is. They often talk about these things. And one of the big things a lot of actors have been yapping on about in recent years is they're all very, very, very pro-trans, are they not? Also, it turns out some of them get a bit confused about their own identity. Olivia Colman, best known, of course, for her roles in The Crown and The Favourite, who's been married for 25 years to a man, Ed Sinclair, has said she has never felt comfortable with rigid gender roles, including in her own marriage. Throughout my whole life, she says, I've had arguments with people where I've always sort of felt non-binary. I've never felt massive feminine in my being female. I've always described myself to my husband as a gay man. And he goes, yeah, I get that. Now, it might be the fact that she is actually doing interviews about a new film, which just happens to look at some of these issues. But let's talk about this with Helen Joyce, Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters and author of Trans, Gender Identity and the New Battle for Women's Rights. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, Julia.
Now, we know trans and non-binary are not the same things. I would say neither of them is actually a real thing, certainly not binary, but when we have very famous, very successful celebrities saying things like, I've always felt non-binary, I'm a gay man in my marriage to my husband. I mean, this is how mad and wide the nonsense has gone, isn't it?
It's just tragic, isn't it? I mean, I would pick out two different things there. Some people think non-binary is a type of trans. Some people say trans and non-binary. I mean, who cares? It's the way of saying that the rest of us are binary. Like when she says, I don't really feel like a woman all the time, I don't feel like a woman all the time. I just feel like a person.
What did I say? What's
just
feeling
ridiculous.
like a woman? I mean, other than Eddie Izzard, so if I've got my flats on, I'm a man, and if I've got my heels on, I'm a woman.
I mean, everything I do is like a woman. I was like a woman when I got my PhD in mathematics. I was like a woman when I gave birth twice. I mean, these are just things that a woman did, so they're things that a woman can do. It's just childish. Someone of her age should know better. This is a teenage identity fad, and it's a way of saying, I'm not like the other girls. And a grown woman saying that should just get herself together. But the good thing is that maybe she'll make it less fashionable for the teenage girls. Because when middle-aged women want to do something, then teenage girls don't tend to. I actually find the bit about gay much, much more offensive, because what she's doing is appropriating something real there. Like, it's not nothing to realise that you're gay and to have to come out, and you still do face prejudice. I mean, there's still people who think that you're inferior. There's plenty of people who think that you're perverted. And there she is saying that because she's special, she's not like the other women. somehow she's a gay man. I mean, gay men don't think she's a gay man, put it that way. And her husband thinks that he does.
And the opposite of that has been, as we've seen in dating apps and stuff for lesbians. So for gay women, but by definition, that's what a lesbian is. They are having men who are claiming that they are trans, they are women, and they are attracted to women. They're just heterosexual men who want to have access to these vulnerable women, and they are on these apps and telling these women that they are bigoted if they won't have sex with a supposedly lesbian with a penis. I mean, this is the madness that's going on, but that's just the other side of that, isn't it? Pretending she's in a gay marriage with her husband. No, you're not. You're a heterosexual woman married to a heterosexual man. You're not that interesting.
I was about to say that she's trying not to sound boring, but there's nothing boring about having made a marriage work for more than a quarter of a century. Why can't she lean into that? I mean, it's just appropriating other people's identities and trying to seem special. I mean, I find it embarrassing when I see it in somebody of her age. But isn't it interesting?
She's saying not only that she's a straight woman, and she's saying that I am a man. Again, untrue. She's saying that I am, or I view myself as gay. She's not. She's straight. Again, we've had this conversation with other guests. If I said I am black, there would be outrage from exactly the people who are going, "Oh, Olivia, oh, well done," and indeed, no doubt from her. No, in my marriage, I feel like I am black as opposed to white. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Yeah. Take her off air. She should lose her job. It's outrageous. Why? What's the difference?
I guess it's the whole rainbow thing, isn't it? It's just been the fashion of the last 10 years to think that it's very boring to be cis, as in not trans, to be heterosexual, as in not gay. So she's just trying to seem interesting. And we haven't had, I mean, for interesting historical reasons, we haven't had the same idea that, I mean, it's not good to be white, that is boring, but that you can opt out of being white by pretending that you're something different. Yes. That's offensive. I really do think that what she's saying is very offensive. And I mean, I just think that if I were gay, I'd look at her and I'd think, you have no idea, woman. You really have no idea what we go through, what we decide, what our culture is. Yeah. If you want to say you're an ally, go for it. But if you want to try to pretend that being gay is about, I don't know what, like liking Kylie Minogue.
Yes, exactly. But this is the thing. But also, it's this idea about what makes you a woman, and then you get into these things where the partner with the eggs, or the partner, you're reduced to your genitalia or your ability to have a child or not have a child. But a lot of it also is down to this very strange. And this Stonewall have done this, and mermaids did this as well. It's very, and it was pushed on kids at Tavistock and other clinics. Your idea of if you are a girl but you like guns and cars, and if you're a boy but you like fashion and things and dressing up, so one of you is a boy, you must be the opposite sex. It's a very 1950s notion of femininity and masculinity, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so regressive. I don't know why they can't see that. Like, what she's saying is, I don't feel like someone who wants to wear pink and heels and put on an apron and flatter my husband, or whatever her idea of being a woman is. Oh, and I also think it's very boring to be in a straight marriage and to be married for a quarter of a century and all that stuff. So I'm so special that I must actually not be those things. What she's saying is that people who are those things are boring and not special. Yeah. And she's reducing the idea of being gay to being something like a lifestyle rather than something that's quite a profound and meaningful thing for people who actually are same-sex attracted. They can be, I don't know, a man can be quite swishy, he can be a drag queen, he can be very heteronormative if he wants, and still be gay if what he's interested in is a life partnership or a love affair or sex with other men. Yeah. That's what it means. It doesn't mean your style. It doesn't mean that you lisp when you talk, or that you get certain haircuts or something.
It is so mad, isn't it? But here's the thing. Maybe she just doesn't listen to anything that any actor or actress or celebrity says. That could be a solution to the issue. Helen Joyce, always good to talk to you, Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters. Benedict Spence, I mean, I would say I'm not a fan of Olivia Colman anyway, because I loved her in The Crown, but I thought she played that role very well because it was basically her. As far as I'm concerned, and I've said it before, I will say it again, Olivia Colman plays Olivia Colman every time.
Yeah, I mean, that's often the case, though, isn't it, with big actors and actresses, actually, that they are picked because of who they are, who they portray, and that's what, the producers want, and then they feel that they matter because of who they are. But I do disagree with this idea that you can't just pick something and that's how you identify. I mean, I really dislike paying tax, and I've been Greek for several years now, so I think that this is perfectly fine.
But again, it's like age. See, the idea, I'm not allowed to identify as black. That would be outrageous and offensive. I'm not allowed to black up, but a man can put woman face on.
To be fair, a black person wouldn't black up.
No, because if I was black, I wouldn't have to black. You're quite right. But I can't say, no, I'm not 57, I'm 23. I identify as a 23-year-old.
I think you just need to believe a little harder in yourself. itself.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
if you believe,
it's just you clap
your
your
hands.
Exactly.
Like in Peter Pan. Let's go back to very briefly to. We've been talking all this morning about Keir Starmer. Now, here's a statement issued from Downing Street. Says the Keir Starmer is not resigning, will be concentrating on the job in hand. Now, he's definitely not concentrating on the job in hand because he's been dealing with the fact that he's got to appoint a new chief of staff. Yeah. He's been dealing with the fact that he's got to appoint a new director of communications, and he's been talking to staff. He's going to talk to the Parliamentary Labour Party, 400 MPs tonight. So he's not. So an awful lot of his day and of his weekend has been spent dealing with the fallout of this thing, as opposed to improving our schools and hospitals and roads and building houses and dealing with the national security issues. There we are. Equally, we've got a very, very big issue with the Royals. Thames Valley Police have said that they are assessing claims that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor shared confidential reports from his role as the UK's trade envoy with Jeffrey Epstein. And it's very, very interesting, because, of course, we've also got these allegations. We've already got the police involved searching the house in Wiltshire and the house in London belonging to Peter Mandelson in the wake of the allegations contained in the Epstein files about him doing the very same things when he was business secretary in the Gordon Brown government. Gordon Brown has come quite clean and said what he did was criminal. We've had Tom Tugendhat, the former security minister, talking about, both men. If these documents are legitimate, if they were sent by them to Epstein, then that would be treason. It would be traitorous. Yeah. We know that the police were already looking into an allegation that a second woman, not Virginia Giuffre, who for some reason the police didn't think it was worth interviewing the Prince Andrew about, was basically taken to Buckingham Palace and says that she was basically trafficked. And then in the last hour, we have had the King on a trip to Lancashire being heckled by a member of the public who then gets booed by the crowd. Let's have a watch and listen to that again.
Charles, how long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? Have you been protecting Andrew from prosecution?
Now, there's a lot of booing of that, and I know you and I, Benedict, we both believe the King has actually acted very quickly on those issues, but he's a public figure, and it's a legitimate question to ask.
It is a legitimate question to ask, and I think it could be. I mean, frankly, it's the making or the breaking of the royal family. Ultimately, how they reacted. As we've already said, we think it's been handled up to now pretty well. Juxtapose that with how the government has handled it. His Majesty's government, not very well at all. I think there's two very different approaches there. And as we said at the start of the show, Keir Starmer, if you're at the top of the pile, you need to take decisive action. You can't wait and then go, oh, it was someone else's fault.
Absolutely. Lots of things that also should be being dealt with by the Prime Minister right now. And one of the other issues we're going to talk about up next is actually the rising toll of student debt, having a massive impact on young people. Maybe you and I are a bit too old to be having to deal with any of these issues, but I bet your kids are dealing with it. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
Okay. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. It's Talk, the home of common sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 12:51 is the time. Let's talk student loans now. One of the many issues that people perhaps prefer the Prime Minister to be dealing with rather than, making dodgy appointments to ambassadors to the US. Let's talk to Nick Hillman. He's director of the Higher Education Policy Institute. He's also a former advisor to a former universities minister under the Tories. A very good afternoon to you, Nick.
Hello, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. I'm sorry our time is quite short. Quite a lot of breaking news on major issues today, but I wanted to stick with this topic because I think it is really important. I'm somebody who went to university. I was on a full grant. I got paid to go to university, waged my way through the holidays, but just about made ends meet with a few grand of debt. Students now are coming out of university with, tens and tens and tens of thousands of pounds worth of debt. For many years, they were paying a very low interest rate. And then a few years back, that interest rate went up by a heck of a lot. And now a lot of young people, and people in this office, who've got tens of thousands of pounds worth of debt, tens and tens, they're paying off loads every month, and yet their debt is growing bigger. This is turning into something of a crisis, isn't it?
It is. You're absolutely right. And ironically, if you go to university now, you don't face those high interest rates. So there's a cohort of about 12 years worth of students who are facing these high interest rates, 6.2%, sometimes on debt that can be close to £100,000 a year. So it's a big thing. What I'm not hearing from the campaigners is exactly what they want the government to do about it. There are lots of different ideas floating around, but they all cost money.
OK, well, explain to us why this one cohort, because I remember we're not talking a lot about Tony Blair at the moment and the people who tried to get him elected. I remember being absolutely horrified when he brought in tuition fees for which people would get loans in the first place, but he wanted to expand the number of people going to uni, and the idea was, well, they can't all be paid for. We're going to have to go to an American style system and people are going to get their debts. But it was like £1,000 a year. Then it was 3,000. Now it's £9,500 plus. Why did this particular cohort get lumbered with all the debt?
So it happened in 2012 during the coalition years, during the austerity years, when they wanted graduates to cover far more of the costs of their education, and they also wanted to build in a little bit of redistribution. So what happens is the really well-off graduates face that interest rate of 6.2%. Low-paid graduates don't. Their interest rate is lower at RPI, 3.2%, and they have their debt wiped out after 30 years. So it's a sort of redistributive system. And what people are finding, they're getting into their early 30s, getting on decent salaries for the first time, finding 9% of their income is going out of their bank account.
9%?
At the very moment, 9% above the threshold, which is about £28,000. Yeah. But it's the very moment in life they probably want to put down a deposit for a house, or they're getting married and having children. Yeah. And in effect, they feel like people felt in the early Thatcher years before she cut income tax. They feel like there's a big extra slug of tax in effect.
And effectively a graduate tax. And we'd had that big debate, I remember some years back, should there be a graduate tax or not? But of course, the reality is the children of the very wealthy, not even very wealthy, anyone fairly well-to-do, will pay their kids school university fees anyway, so that they're not actually facing the debt. But actually, we were told this was about, widening access to university. And I have to say, I was stunned that charging people and having people having to take out loans did not see a lot of people from poorer backgrounds being put off university. On the contrary, it widened it. But the trouble is, a university degree with there's many, as a best part of 50% of the population going to university now, it means that a university degree isn't worth as much as it used to be anymore. So you've got a lot of young people, they come out of uni and they got all this debt, and they have to start paying back at a pretty low wage now, but they're not in graduate type jobs. They're doing jobs which they could easily have done without a degree and without the debt.
Well, that is true for some. There are all sorts of careers now that insist you are a graduate that didn't used to. So the only choice you've got is to go to university. And I do believe in strong regulation of universities. So if there are bad quality courses with bad outcomes out there...
And there are plenty of those.
well, regulators should be absolutely looking at any of those. But one of the challenges here is you sign up for a student loan when you're 17, typically. You've never had a job before.
Yeah.
The terms and conditions of the loan say the government can change them at any time they like, and they have done.
Yeah.
And they have done, to load additional costs onto graduates. Much worse deal than when they first took out the loans. And then people are finding out what it means when they're in the labour market later on. So, the reason this has become a big issue in the last couple of months is in the budget, Rachel Reeves has toughened up the rules yet again.
I mean, one of the key things here is we're in loan shark territory here, aren't we, to all intents and purposes? I mean, yeah, we'll just do what we want. We take the money, and there's nothing you can do about that money. You don't choose whether you're going to pay that money back or not. That money is taken. Although, by the way, the people who are getting the loans who are coming from the EU, there's no way of tracking them down. They often don't pay the money back.
So certainly people repaying these loans do feel very often they've been missold them. I would argue actually that's not really the case, because there are these inbuilt insurance features, like the loan gets written off eventually if you don't repay. If you lose your job, you don't repay. And there are some pretty, it's a better deal than you're going to get from your credit card or your mortgage provider. So there are still some really positive features about these loans, but they have been mucked around with. It's not what was put in place in 2012. And they, a fresh look at it makes sense.
Exactly, I have to say. And again, an awful lot of people really coming up against it, those high rates of marginal rates of tax at a time when they want to be settling down, having babies and buying a home. And we'd quite like them to do that. It would be good for the economy. Nick Hillman, Director of the Higher Education Policy Institute, thank you for that. Benedict Spence, you were sitting there listening with a lot of interest. I imagine you're one of the people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you part of that cohort?
Yes, absolutely. And there are millions of people like that. And it's exactly as you say, it's the people who are supposedly in the social contract at this moment in time, getting on the housing ladder, having children, and that amount of money is being taken out of their pay.
9%
to put it in some context, all you have to be doing is earning £500 a year more than the living wage. Does that sound like a particularly wealthy person? No, not really. If this was something that affected pensioners, this would be a catastrophic issue, but it doesn't, so we're not talking about it. Until now, because millennials are starting to get into these positions, it's going to end up being a major political issue, and so it's a great opportunity for a party to grasp the issue by the nail, because it is having real-world effects. And, of course, it's not even like this money is being used just to pay off the universities. It's being appropriated by the government to pay all sorts
and by the way,
things.
it's not paying for the universities. No.
Yeah.
Our taxes are paying for the universities. I still wanted to get to it, even on a very busy news day. Benedict Smith, you could feel the passion. You can feel the passion. Joining us now, Ian Collins. Quite a busy news day, quite a lot going on.
Can I just say, don't go to university for God's sake.
There is that argument.
You went to a decent polytechnic, did all right out of it, did okay.
I did a media studies course.
I didn't go to one at all. The encouragement for kids to not go to university is virtually zero.
I think we need to get. I think we need to take it back to about